Tonight, you will hear a secret preserved by Zen masters over hundreds of years. A simple yet profound way to soothe an anxious mind and to free you from those thoughts repeating over and over. I will tell you a special Zen story, one that has helped countless people learn how to let go of fear, stop nursing endless mental scenarios, and rediscover the peace that is already present in this very moment. Let this voice be your companion, so that each word is like a gentle breeze touching your heart, guiding you away from the whirlpool of worry and closer to the equanimity you have long sought. Close your eyes. Imagine you are sitting in a small temple on a mountain. On an early autumn evening, the space is utterly quiet. Moonlight falls gently across the temple courtyard, spreading over ancient stones covered with green moss. A soft breeze drifts by, carrying the faint fragrance of wildflowers along the path. In the distance, the insects sing as a slow melody, blending with the solemn breath of the earth and sky. On the temple veranda, a novice monk sits quietly, his eyes gazing at a small pond before the courtyard. The water reflects the moon, clear, yet wavering because of the little ripples. In the novice's heart, just like that pond, there is no peace. Worries about tomorrow keep repeating, like a spiral with no exit. He bows his head slightly, then hesitantly asks his teacher, "Master, I fear that tomorrow something bad might happen. I keep thinking, but the more I think, the more exhausted I feel. How can I find peace of mind?" That timid voice rings out into the night, like a light breeze stirring the stillness of space. The teacher sits beside the novice, looking composed as though he had been there for countless ages. He does not hurry to answer. He quietly lifts his gaze to the full moon, shining over the temple. After a moment, he gently points toward the pond before them. The pond is bright with moonlight, yet the ripples make the reflection flicker, sometimes perfectly round, sometimes trembling, sometimes breaking into many fragments. "Do you see the moon trembling?" he asks. The novice is surprised, but replies, "Yes, master, the moon is trembling on the water's surface." The teacher softly smiles, his eyes kindly as autumn wind, and says, "The moon never trembles. Only the surface of the water moves." Similarly, your fears and wandering thoughts are not the truth. They are only ripples passing across the water of your mind. When the mind is calm, the moon is seen clearly. When the mind is agitated, the moon becomes distorted. The novice is silent. Even the insects seem to pause their song, making way for the stillness filling the courtyard. He looks at the pond and realizes that the moon remains full and luminously bright in the sky, unmuddied, only the water's surface is unsettled. A breeze drifts by, gently shifting the temple eaves. In that moment, he feels many burdens in his heart falling away. Thoughts of tomorrow, fears about the unknown, all of it suddenly shrinks and drifts away. The teacher lays his hand gently on the novice's shoulder, speaking slowly. "You do not need to force away your fear, nor do you need to block your thoughts. Simply allow them to come and go, like ripples on the surface of a pond. When your breath slows, when you sit quietly and listen to yourself, the water quiets, and the moon's reflection brightens again." The teacher's words flow into the heart like cool water. The novice closes his eyes and senses the breath entering and leaving, slowly and gently. In that breath, he feels he is no longer led by fear, no longer trapped by wandering thoughts. Only the full moon remains, steady, untouched, unchanging. The autumn night continues flowing like a gentle stream. Once the pond in his heart has stilled, the teacher and novice leave the veranda, walking along the stone path toward a tea house. Moonlight follows behind them, casting a soft beam upon the steps. In the small room, the teacher places 2 cups of tea in front of them, pouring slowly, the warm aroma rising like a thin mist. After a moment, the teacher lifts the teapot and pours into the novice's cup until the tea reaches the brim, and then continues pouring. The tea overflows, seeping into the tablecloth, releasing its sweet fragrance. The novice quickly says, "Master, it is full already." The teacher sets down the pot, smiling, and says, Your mind is like this cup, already filled with fear and piling thoughts. How can peace be poured in? To receive silence, you need to set the cup down. To empty it, try sitting quietly and breathing as though you have placed the cup aside, no longer grasping at anything. In the quiet room, the novice lifts his cup, takes a sip, feeling warmth spread through his chest, as though he has just placed an invisible burden down. He understands that peace is not something to be added, but the space that opens when one stops stuffing the mind with what ifs, and every projection that has not yet arrived. The next morning, dew still clings to the bamboo leaves behind the garden. The teacher leads the novice across a little stream. The water is crystal clear, stones hiding under its cool flow. On the bank stands a young woman, hesitant, her long dress preventing her from crossing the stream. Saying little, the teacher bends and says, "We will help you across," then gently carries her to the other side. He sets her down, then continues walking. The novice quietly follows, but his heart stirs like water ruffled by wind. After a while, he cannot hold it in. "Master, how can a cultivator touch a woman?" The teacher replies calmly, "I set her down at the riverbank long ago. Why are you still carrying her on your shoulders?" Those words fall into the novice's heart like a pebble into water, rippling, then sinking, leaving the surface calmer than before. He suddenly realizes that his fears and silent self-blames are burdens he has carried by his own will. Burdens he can set down at any moment, if only he lets go. The stream flows on, the sky remains clear, and the path ahead unfolds with an odd spaciousness. By midday, the sunlight tilts across pine groves. The teacher sits on a stone terrace, the novice standing beside him. The teacher says, "Listen to the sound of one hand clapping." The novice is perplexed. In his mind arise countless thoughts, seeking an answer through examples, comparisons, then rejecting them himself. The more he thinks, the farther he moves from the question. Time passes in silence, only the wind slipping through leaves and a short bird's note landing then taking off. Finally, the teacher softly says, "There are things the mind tries to grasp at but cannot, because they do not belong to reasoning. Listen with the silence within you. Let the question remain without conclusion." In that moment, you will realize that overthinking is like stirring water to see the bottom. The more you stir, the murkier it becomes. Peace arrives when the hand stops stirring, and the water becomes clear on its own. The novice breathes a long exhale, realizing he does not need to chase answers. Only allow things to be as they are in this moment. As the evening settles in, clouds stretch like a silver ribbon across the mountainside. The teacher leads the novice into an old room, where an old mirror hangs on the wall. The mirror is fogged with dust. The teacher says, "Many people believe their minds are inherently clouded, that fear and confusion are their true nature." Then, slowly and gently, he wipes the mirror with a soft cloth. The dust fades, and the mirror reflects the room clearly again: the lamp, the wooden floor, even the last streak of sunlight. The nature of the mirror is to reflect. The teacher says, "The dust is only something that comes and goes. Your mind is the same. Fear and tangled thoughts are just a thin layer of dust. You do not need to fight them. You only need to wipe them away with presence and breath." The novice sees his own reflection appear, no longer distorted behind the fog. He smiles softly, as if he has just reunited with an old friend. On the second night, as the temple bell chimes, the teacher brings the novice out to the courtyard. He points to the moon and then to the ground, saying, "The finger points to the moon. Do not mistake the finger for the moon." Teachings, techniques, even stories like the ones from today, they are merely fingers pointing. Their purpose is to help you see the stillness already within you. If you cling to the words, the rituals, your fears, or your habit of overanalyzing, you will miss what they are pointing to. Use the tools, then let them go. In the deep blue sky, the moon remains, needing no one to prove it. The peace within you is the same. It does not need to be rationalized. You only need to return and recognize it. One morning, when the dew still weaves white threads on the grass, the teacher places a cup of cold tea in front of the novice. You can frown because the tea is no longer hot, he says, or you can take a sip and notice its refreshing taste. Life will not always go your way. The mind will want to compare, to create stories of what should have been, what could have been, and then get exhausted by those stories. But this moment, even as a cup of cold tea, is whole in its own way. When fear shows up, when thoughts run wild, try returning to something small and real. The warmth in your hands, the birdsong on the roof, your steady breath, like sipping what remains in the cup, and suddenly, you feel complete. On another afternoon, the teacher gives the novice a pair of sandals and invites him to walk around the foot of the mountain. After a while, the novice winces in pain. He removes his sandals and finds a tiny pebble inside. He laughs at himself for enduring the discomfort instead of stopping to take it out. The teacher looks at him and says, "How many fears are just like that pebble, sitting quietly in your mind simply because you have not paused to notice and let them go?" Some things only need to be recognized, gently named, and exhaled, and they fall away. You do not need to carry everything with you along every path. When a summer storm sweeps in, the sky darkens, and rain lashes down on the roof tiles, the teacher closes the wooden door, then reopens it, and tells the novice to observe. The door was never locked, yet the storm could not knock this room down. He says, often, fear is like an open door. We imagine there is a bottomless pit beyond it, and so we never dare to walk through. But if you touch it, you will find it is light as the wind, and easy to pass. Try facing one small fear today. Speak to it with a calm breath. Thank it for keeping you alert. Then walk right through it. As the rain thins out and the sky brightens behind the fading clouds, the whole room feels as if it has been washed clean. By the end of the season, the garden behind the temple is filled with wild grass. The teacher hands the novice a small hoe. Together, they slowly begin weeding, not rushing, not angry. The mind is a garden. The teacher says, if you ignore it, the weeds of fear and overthinking will take over and smother all the good flowers. But if you tear everything up recklessly, you will also uproot what gives life. The right way is to return each day. Care for it with patience, with steady breath, with small acts. Pull a weed, plant a rosemary sprout, pour a little water, clear a path. After one season, the garden finds peace again. And after many days, so will your mind. Late summer wind caresses the perilla leaves, releasing a subtle aroma. The novice feels a simple joy arise, needing no reason at all. At this point, all the stories, like little streams, have come together into a calm river within the novice's heart. The moon and the water taught him the unchanging nature of peace. The empty cup reminded him to let go of what no longer serves. The one who crossed the river showed him how to set burdens down. The sound of one hand clapping invited him to stop stirring the mind. The dusty mirror offered him faith that clarity will return with a gentle wipe. The finger pointing to the moon reminded him not to cling to the means. The cold tea, the pebble in the sandal, the unlocked door, the garden of weeds, all pointed in one direction, back to simple awareness in the present moment. If you are hearing these words now, try letting your body settle, like the moon settling onto the still surface of a pond. If a fear arises, notice it like a pebble in your shoe. Pause and remove it. If your mind begins crafting stories of what ifs and should haves, smile as you sip a cup of cold tea and agree with the moment. Kindly, if you feel lacking in answers, listen for the sound of one hand clapping and allow silence to respond in place of words. Each breath is a small stroke of the hoe in your mental garden. Each moment of letting go is a gentle wipe across your mirror. Minute by minute, you will realize peace is not something to chase ahead. It is the moon that has always been there, unmoving in the sky, just waiting for the water of your mind to settle so it can appear in full. And from this stillness, we can step gently into the next story, where autumn continues whispering through the leaves. And the temple bell rings long, like arms embracing the whole sky. That morning, the sky felt freshly laundered after the night's rain. Wispy clouds drift slowly over the mountain peaks. The teacher tells the novice to follow him down the path that winds along the slope, where a wide river curves at the edge of the forest. The river is not yet fully muddy. There are still streaks of clear blue revealing the rocky bottom. The current smooth but deep. On the bank rests an old raft made of bamboo, its ropes worn, a few fallen leaves still holding drops of water like crystals. Looking at the river, the teacher says, "Today we will cross to gather some herbs." The novice hesitates. The vast flow reawakens an old fear, like a familiar whisper in his mind. The teacher gently pushes the raft into the water and invites the novice on board, his hand steady and soft. Like placing a teacup, the raft glides across the river. The water slaps rhythmically against the bamboo. The scent of post-rainforest is cool and fresh. Upon reaching the far bank, they jump down and drag the raft onto the sand. The teacher looks back at it and says, "The river gave us a gift. It brought us across. Now the raft stays here." He walks calmly into the forest. A few steps later, he stops and smiles. The novice is struggling to hoist the raft onto his back, trying to carry it along. The teacher says, "You have already crossed the river. Why are you carrying the raft? The raft is meant to be used when needed, not kept like a treasure." Fear is like that raft. Sometimes it helps you be careful at the right moment. But once you have crossed to the other side, if you keep clinging to it, you will not get far. Even the teachings, the words, the analyses stored in your mind, if you carry them forever, they become a burden. Set them down, so your steps may be light. The novice stood motionless in the dew-wet forest, and suddenly that saying struck him like a beam of sunlight piercing through the canopy. Up until now, each time he overcame a difficulty, he quietly held on to assumptions and excessive vigilance in his heart, as though the world always hid a blade behind every door. He thought this was wisdom, but in fact he was binding himself with invisible threads. He set the raft down, lifted his gaze to the pale sky, and heard leaves falling to earth like tiny bells. In his mind, all the confusion about tomorrow, the tasks to be done, the words of others, they gently dissolved like vapor meeting sunlight. His steps became unburdened, and each breath felt like it opened more space in his chest. The teacher continued walking, picking a few fragrant twigs, showing the novice how to recognize the scent of earth after rain and the scent of light as dusk approaches. All of it is simple, and that very simplicity causes the mind to settle naturally. When they returned to the riverbank, the water was completely still, the clouds drifting undisturbed as though last night's storm had never stirred them. They no longer needed the raft, for the water level had receded, and stepping across the exposed stones was possible. The teacher said, "Do you see? What you need today may no longer be what you need tomorrow." One who lives peacefully does not cling to the raft that carried him, nor does he reject it. He simply knows when to use it, and when to put it down. That evening, when the oil lamp was lit in the small room, the teacher told the novice to sit and recall the rafts he was still carrying in his heart. There was the raft of a critical word said years ago. Every time he tried something new, he would pull that up in self-reminder. There was the raft of a past fall, which he called experience, but was really a disguised fear. There was the raft of meditation methods he had read, so that each breath he tried to control as though reciting a lesson, causing the breath to lose its naturalness. "Look at each one," the teacher said, "and gently set it down, not to discard forever, but to rest it on the riverbank. When needed, you may return, because what carried you across today may not be useful tomorrow. What guarded you on one stretch may tire you on a longer path." Wisdom is knowing gratitude and knowing letting go. If you are hearing these words, try quietly naming a raft you still carry. Perhaps it is the habit of analyzing every negative possibility before sleep, turning each night into a trial inside your head. Perhaps it is an offhand comment someone made, which you gave power to judge every decision you make. Perhaps it is a method that once worked, but now you attempt to use it in every situation, like holding a hammer and treating everything as a nail. Imagine yourself standing by a calm river, placing that raft on the sandy bank, touching your own shoulder as a gesture of reassurance, and then stepping away with light feet. No elaborate ritual, just a deep breath and a gentle decision. From that moment, you do not reject the past. You simply do not allow the past to walk for you in the path of the present. And if tomorrow you face another river, you will know to choose a different raft, or simply choose the shallow stones to cross, without fear, without rigidity, because peace does not lie in the raft. Peace lies in the flexibility of the heart that knows when to hold and when to let go. When you understand this, we can quietly close the story by the riverbank, letting tonight's moon guide us into the next tale, where a small lamp will show us that darkness was never the enemy, but merely a space waiting for a gentle ray of light to enter. Night fell slowly like a silk veil draped over the mountainside. Wind rustled through bamboo, whispering long sighs. In the small room at the end of the corridor, the teacher placed an oil lamp on a wooden table. At first the flame flickered, then settled, glowing with a warm halo, not brilliant but steadfast. The novice sat across, his eyes still holding a trace of hesitancy from the long day just past. The teacher said, "Many fear the dark without knowing the dark is just where light has not yet reached. Once you understand this, fear within you shifts color." He raised his hand to partially cover the lamp. The shadow cast on the wall immediately changed shape. Then he withdrew his hand, and the room softened again. Darkness is not rigid. It shifts in response to light. Fear is the same. It changes according to your awareness. The teacher told the novice to rise and open the window. Looking out at the temple courtyard, the sky had no moon, only small constellations flickering like salt grains sprinkled across black fabric. The courtyard below was dim, the veranda blending into the shadows of trees like ink spreading out. The teacher extinguished the lamp, and the whole room sank into gentle darkness. "What do you feel?" he asked. The novice whispered, "I feel my heart beating faster, as though something is about to happen." The teacher relit the lamp. Its warm glow brightened the room, and the beating of the novice's heart naturally slowed. "Your mind is like someone walking in the night without a lamp," he said. "Every leaf that falls can become a hidden beast in your imagination. Overthinking is when you add shapes to the darkness that are not really there. With even a small lamp, you see, it is just a leaf touching the ground, a gust of wind passing, a bamboo branch bending. That light is mindfulness. When you turn on the lamp of attention, fear loses its grasp." The novice watched the flame carefully. The teacher took a thin sheet of oiled paper and placed it over the lamp's opening. The light weakened immediately, but remained enough to see one another. He said, "If you demand a blazing sun before daring to step, you will remain stopped your whole life. Sometimes only a small lamp is enough to see the next step." Peace is not banishing darkness. It is accepting walking in the night with some light. Step by step, breath by breath. If the night is dense, stay, listen, let your eyes adjust. You will realize your gaze also knows how to flower in darkness. Do not rush, do not force, just slow down and befriend the night. The teacher gave the novice a small mirror and placed it beside the lamp. Looking into it, the novice saw his face becoming clear. The teacher said, "When there is no lamp, you may look into the mirror and see nothing. You might think the mirror is broken, your face distorted, something wrong. You become confused, anxious, attempting to imagine what is happening. That is how the mind operates when it lacks the light of attention. It will fabricate stories to fill the void." The way to stop is not to break the mirror or scold yourself for imagining, but to light the lamp. Acknowledging you are in darkness and need a little light. When the light is present, stories unravel, leaving only simple truth. Outside, the night rain suddenly fell on the roof tiles, first sparse, then forming a steady array of droplets. The teacher told the novice to sit quietly, place his hand on his belly, and breathe in time with the rain. Allow your breath to be your lamp. With each inhalation, know you are inhaling. With each exhalation, know you are exhaling. When the mind draws you into nameless worries, gently return the lamp to the point of feeling, your hand on your belly, the flow of air across your nostrils. The lamp is small but faithful. It will not abandon you mid-path, as long as you remember to light it. After a few minutes, the novice felt a warmth spread within, not fierce, but steady, like a ray of light flowing through his veins. Thoughts of tomorrow still came like rain, but they no longer felt like a storm, only the sound of falling drops. Inside him, there was a steadfast veranda. The teacher stood and led the novice into the hallway. There lay a patch of darkness, deeper because a corner of the wall blocked the light. The teacher placed a small lamp on the ground, its flame barely flickering. Try walking through that darkness, he said, but keep your gaze fixed on the lamp. Do not look at the shadows. The novice stepped slowly, placing each foot on the cool tile floor, hearing the soft rustle of his robe. After only a few steps, he realized the darkness was no longer frightening as it had seemed from afar. When his vision remained upon the light, the darkness receded on its own, no struggle, no argument, only a shift of attention. The teacher smiled. You cannot erase darkness by more darkness. You only need to bring light in. You cannot stop overthinking by layering more reasoning. You only need to bring your attention to a simple, vivid point, like the breath, like the soles of your feet, like the sound of the night rain. They returned to the room. The teacher extinguished the lamp again, leaving just a few firefly glimmers outside in the yard, like silent punctuation marks in a poem. In that gentle darkness, he spoke softly. If one day you find yourself in a dark room, do not blame the darkness. Do not quickly judge yourself for being afraid. Remember to fumble for a match. Strike it. Perhaps it will go out. Then you strike another. Eventually you will light a lamp. When the lamp is lit, you will smile, because you will realize darkness has never opposed you. It was simply giving space for the light to enter. In life, each time you bring your warm attention to a fear, you are lighting a lamp. And over time, you will have a string of lamps lighting your path, so that when night falls, you will know the soft road under your feet. If you are hearing these words, try closing your eyes and find your own small lamp. It may be the breath brushing your chest, the feeling of your hand resting on your heart, the sound of rain or the hum of a fan. Place your attention there for a few breaths, as if resting your eyes on the flame. Each time your mind wanders, gently lead it back. No reproach, no rush. Then you will see the darkness inside you is no longer an abyss. It is simply a space waiting for a gentle light to enter. And once that lamp blooms within you, carry it like a kind friend, to walk through other rooms of life where fear once dwelt. From here, we can step on quietly, for outside the sky is preparing to change, and another story is waiting, like the dawn waiting for the sun to brush its hand upon the mountain peak. Gentle yet certain. The next morning, clouds hung low like silk ribbons, thin mist laying upon the stone steps leading down to the garden behind the temple. The teacher and the novice went out together to tend the herb beds. On a climbing rose branch still clung beads of dew, a few yellowing leaves hinting at the coming season. As he tied a string, the novice accidentally brushed a thorn, and a tiny point pricked his fingertip. The pain flashed like a short musical note, but in that moment, his mind assembled a choir of fears. He thought of past carelessness, the possibility of infection, all the terrible things that could arise from such a small prick. He recalled old scoldings, and all gathered like a sudden dark cloud. The teacher looked at him, gentle as morning sun, and said, "You have just been struck by 2 arrows. The first arrow is the actual sensation in your fingertip. It comes and will pass. The second arrow is the story you rush to tell yourself. shooting into your mind with imagination and fear. The first arrow belongs to the body, the second belongs to the mind. We do not need to welcome the second arrow. He fetched a cup of warm water and had the novice sit on the veranda. Placing his hand on his knee, try to sense just what is present. He said, the slight tingling at the fingertip, the warmth of the water touching the skin. Breathe in slowly, knowing you are breathing in. Breathe out slowly, knowing you are breathing out. When a story arises, a whisper about something bad, simply name its story and return to the actual sensation that is present. The novice sat quietly, the sharp sting eased as a ripple withdrawing on a pond. Thoughts arrived and passed. Each time one appeared, he touched it with a little nod inside, not chasing it away, not inviting it in. After a while, the garden sounds returned, small but clear. Birds pecking seeds, the breeze stirring leaves, the teacher's footsteps about the herb beds, all brighter now, thanks to an unclouded gaze. The teacher sat down beside him and gently turned a leaf of basil. He said that life always presents first arrows, a sudden remark, a shift at work, fatigue in the body, a rainstorm when you are outside. But greatest suffering often comes from the second arrows, layers of speculation. Inner movies we project, the chord we open at night within ourselves, where we are judge and defendant. When you see this, you can treat the first arrow kindly, tending it like a small wound, and refuse to shoot a second arrow. The refusal is not resistance or suppression. It is naming what is. This is a tightness in my chest. This is a worst-case thought. This is a fear that wants to protect me. Once named, things soften. Like naming a friend causes them to pause and smile. At midday, the sun lowered behind the remnant mist. The teacher poured a cup of tea and said, "Close your eyes." He guided the novice to bring the cup near his nose. The novice smelled the herbs, felt the warmth in his hands, and sensed a small joy pushing open a door. The teacher said, "See, when you are in your body and in the present, a fragrance can be as vast as the sky. But when you are in the second arrow, the sky shrinks to the eye of a needle." Next time something does not go as you wish, first care for the first arrow. Place your hand over where you feel it most. Breathe 3 slow breaths as if pouring warm water into the palm. Then kindly say to the second arrow, "I know you are trying to protect me. Thank you, but now I will sit with the present moment. If it wants to stay, let it sit like a distant cloud. You do not need to chase it away. That way, you will not spend the whole day just fighting a small prickle and the drizzle outside the window." In the late afternoon, the teacher and novice walked along the mountain path. The wind stirred pine needles softly, the whisper steady, like the forest's long breath. He told him that fear is not an enemy. It is a gentle reminder that something is asking for your care. When you listen to that reminder, you draw near with kindness. Place your hand where it hurts. Ask what you need now. Perhaps a drink, 5 minutes of stillness, a call with a friend, an early rest, and do not try to resolve your entire life in one afternoon. One step for a step, one breath for a breath. The path reveals itself through your steps, not through a map you draw endlessly in your mind. He stopped under a large tree, pointing to the sky where a few clouds were turning honey-colored. "Do you see?" he said. "The sky is still there, whether birds fly or not. Peace is still there, whether thoughts come or go. The first arrow comes, then goes. The second arrow comes, then goes. But the sky does not come or go." Night returned. The temple bell rang deeply. The novice spread a mat on the veranda, lay on his side, placing his hand on his belly. He noticed that even in stillness, a thought about tomorrow flickered in his head. But instead of chasing it, he smiled in the darkness and named it. "This is the second arrow." Then returned to listening to his breath. Slowly, sleep came as a friend arriving at the appointed hour, placing a gentle kiss upon his forehead. Outside, wind brushed the grasses. The sky was calm. Within, the water of his inner pond was flat, reflecting a full moon. The teacher rose and led the novice into the corridor. There lay a deeper darkness where the angle of the wall blocked the light. The teacher placed a small lamp on the floor, its flame only faintly glimmering. "Try walking through that darkness," he said, "but keep your eyes on the lamp. Do not look at the shadows." The novice walked slowly, placing his steps on the cool tile floor, hearing the soft rustle of his garment. After only a few breaths, he realized the darkness was no longer as frightening from close at hand. When his gaze remained on the light, the darkness withdrew on its own. No fight, no argument, only shifting attention. The teacher smiled. "You cannot erase darkness with more darkness. You need only bring in the light. You cannot stop overthinking by building layer upon layer of reasoning. You only need to bring your attention to a simple, vivid point, like the breath, like the soles of your feet, like the sound of the night rain." They returned to the room. The teacher extinguished the lamp once more, leaving faint blinks of fireflies in the yard like silent punctuation marks in a poem. In the gentle darkness, the teacher spoke softly. "If one day you find yourself in a dark room, do not blame the darkness. Do not rush to judge yourself for being afraid. Remember to fumble for a match. Strike one. Perhaps it will go out. Then strike another. Eventually you will light a lamp. When it glows, you will smile, because you will understand that darkness has never opposed you. It was simply giving space for light to enter." In life, each time you bring warm attention to a fear, you are lighting a lamp. Over time, you will have a string of lamps to guide you, and when night comes, you will know the gentle path under your feet. If you are listening, try closing your eyes and find your own small lamp. Perhaps it is the breath touching your chest, a hand resting on your heart, the sound of rain or the hum of a fan. Place your attention there for a few breaths, as if placing your eyes on the flame. Whenever your mind wanders, gently lead it back, without blame, without hurry. Then you will see that the darkness within is no longer an abyss, just a space waiting for a gentle light to enter. When that lamp blossoms inside you, carry it like a kind friend, to walk through other rooms of life where fear once dwelled. From here we step quietly forward, for outside the sky is preparing to shift, and another story awaits, like dawn waiting to lift its hand upon the mountain peak. Gentle yet certain. The next morning, clouds hung low like silk ribbons. Thin mist still wetting the stone steps down to the temple's back garden. The teacher and the novice ventured out together to tend the herb beds. On a rose vine still clung dewdrops, and a few yellowing leaves hinted at the coming season. As he tied a string, the novice inadvertently brushed against a thorn. A tiny point pricked his fingertip. The pain flickered like a brief musical note, but in that moment his mind raced with a choir of worries. He thought of past clumsiness, of possible infection, of all the terrible consequences that might follow such a small prick. He recalled old criticisms, and they gathered like a sudden dark cloud. The teacher looked at him, soft as morning sunlight, and said, "You have just been struck by two arrows. The first arrow is the actual sensation in your fingertip. It comes and it will pass. The second arrow is the story you rush to tell yourself, which you shoot into your mind through imagination and fear. The first arrow belongs to the body. The second arrow belongs to the mind. We do not need to accept the second arrow." He fetched a cup of warm water and told the novice to sit on the veranda. Placing his hand on his knee, try simply sensing what is present. He said, the slight tingling in the fingertip, the warmth of the water touching the skin. Inhale slowly, knowing that you breathe in. Exhale slowly, knowing that you breathe out. When a story arises, a whisper about something bad, simply name its story, and return to the actual feeling that is present. The novice sat quietly. The sting subsided, like a ripple retreating over a pond. Thoughts arrived and retreated. Each time one appeared, he quietly nodded inward, neither chasing it away nor inviting it in. After a while, the garden sounds returned, small, distinct. A bird pecking seed, wind brushing leaves, The teacher's footsteps among the herb beds, all clearer now, freed from the veils of anxious thought. The teacher sat beside him, gently lifting a basil leaf. He said that life always brings first arrows, a sudden remark, change at work, bodily fatigue, an untimely rainstorm. But the greatest suffering often comes from second arrows, layered speculations. Inner movies we conjure, the nightly court we open in our minds where we play both judge and defendant. When you see this, you can treat the first arrow with kindness, tending it like a small wound, and refuse to launch the second arrow. That refusal is not resistance or suppression. It is naming the present. This is a tightness in my chest. This is a worst-case thought. This is a fear trying to protect me. Once named, the story softens. Like naming a friend causes them to pause and smile. At midday, the sun lowered behind the lingering mist. The teacher poured a cup of tea and said, "Close your eyes." He guided the novice to bring the cup near his nose. The novice smelled the herbal scent, felt the warmth in his hands, and sensed a small joy pushing open a door. The teacher said, "See, when you are in the body and in the present, a fragrance can feel as vast as the sky. But when you live in the second arrow, the sky shrinks to the eye of a needle." Next time something unwanted touches you, first care for the first arrow. Place your hand over where you feel it most. Breathe 3 slow breaths as though pouring warm water into your palm. Then kindly say to the second arrow, "I know you try to protect me, but now I will rest with the present." If it stays, let it sit like a distant cloud. You do not need to chase it away. Thus, you will not waste your whole day fighting a small prick and the drizzle outside your window. In the afternoon, they walked along the mountain path. The wind stirred pine leaves softly. He told him that fear is not an enemy. It is a gentle reminder that something seeks your care. When you hear that reminder, approach with kindness. Place your hand on the hurt. Ask what you need now. Perhaps a drink, 5 minutes of stillness, a call to a friend, an early rest. Do not try to resolve your whole life in one afternoon. One step at a time. One breath at a time. The path reveals itself by your steps, not by a map you endlessly draw in your mind. They paused under a large tree. He pointed to the sky where a few clouds took on honey hues. "Do you see?" he said. "The sky remains, whether birds fly or not. Peace remains, whether thoughts come or go. The first arrow comes, then goes. The second arrow comes, then goes. But the sky neither comes nor goes." Night returned. The temple bell rang deeply. The novice laid out a mat on the veranda, lay on his side, placing his hand on his belly. He noticed that even in silence, a thought about tomorrow flickered. But instead of chasing it, he smiled in the darkness and named it. "This is the second arrow." Then turned to hear his breath. Gradually, sleep came like a friend arriving on time, placing a gentle kiss on his forehead. Outside, wind brushed the grasses. The sky was calm. Within, the water of his inner lake lay flat, reflecting a full moon. The bell rings, not loudly, but round and deep, like a wave expanding over the surface of a night lake. The ground under the novice's feet trembles ever so slightly, a warm vibration traveling up his spine and reaching the corners of his eyes. The teacher speaks very softly. Follow the sound of the bell as though walking with a friend. From the moment it first touches the ears, to when the tone becomes full, and then fades, each stage should be clear like fingers counting pearls. The novice closes his eyes and listens to the circle of sound that expands and then thins like mist dissolving. In the silence after the bell, he suddenly senses a spacious void opening, not emptiness, but fullness, like a room just cleared and opened to the wind. The teacher strikes the bell again. Its resonance joins with the night breeze, like two streams merging without competition. The teacher says, "Fear and the waves of wandering thought are also sounds. They appear, swell, and then fade. Overthinking arises when you try to hold the sound inside your mind, listening through one cycle then layering another, not allowing a conclusion. You imprison yourself in an imagined strand stretching endlessly. Practice hearing the true sounds of life, to learn how everything is allowed an ending, like the bell that knows how to cease in silence. Each time a thought arises, you can name it as a tone. This is a worry beginning. This is a worry rising. This is a worry dissolving. No chasing, no grasping. Just observe its cycle as you would a bell's echo. A breeze stirs the eaves and the bell sways slightly without the striker touching it. The teacher asks, "Where does this bell sound come from?" The novice looks upward, wanting to say, "From the wind." But the teacher smiles. Not just the wind, nor just the bell. It is the meeting of bell, wind, eaves, sky, and the ears that listen. Fear arises in the same way, not because of a single event, but because of the meeting between memory, habit, a tired body, and how we place attention. When you understand this, you can tend to each factor. Rest the body, soften the memory, shift the habit, and above all return attention to the present. Then the sound of fear lightens, just as closing a door softens the wind that might strike the bell too sharply. The teacher asks the novice to step back a few paces, so that the distance allows the ears to expand wider. He strikes the bell lightly, then falls silent without further words. The novice hears the bell's tone expand across the courtyard, past the pines, reaching the bamboo fence, a kind of invisible embrace over the garden. When the sound subsides, he hears the silence of the garden itself, not absence, but a gentle ground in which every echo can arise. He senses why, when his mind is unsettled, a single bell can shift light in the room, as though clouds were pushed aside from the sun, not because of any magic in the bell, but because it calls the mind back into the natural rhythm of arising and fading, giving things their right to end. The teacher hands the striker to the novice. "You strike now," he says, "but before you do, inhale and place a small intention in your palm." The novice holds the striker, feeling the wood's warmth and solidity. He breathes in, breathes out, and silently says to himself that this bell is for the fears wandering in his heart, so they might find their way home. He strikes gently. The bell rings like a star dropping into water, then dissolving into circles of light. In that moment, he sees that questions still remain. Tasks lie ahead, but amid them all there is a point of radiance unmoved. He knows he has touched it, even if only with the tip of a finger. The teacher sits on the veranda, his hands on his knees. He says, "This bell practice is not to create a thunderous sound, but to hone a truly quiet ear. When the ear is quiet, the mind is quiet, and everything becomes a bell. The footsteps on gravel, water bubbling in a teapot, a child's laughter down the lane, raindrops on the roof, the ticking of a wall clock through the night. Each can call you back. And when you've learned to return by those sounds, you will no longer wait for the bell to strike. You will hear fear as a tone. Greet it, follow it, and then let it pass. You will hear thought as a tone. Greet it, follow it, and let it pass. That is enough to make your mind into a temple with a bell, where every day is time to come home. If you are listening now, there may already be a bell near you. It could be the hum of air conditioning, the spin of a fan, distant traffic, or simply your breath. Choose one sound and call it your bell. Follow it from the moment it touches your ear until it fades. 3 times in a row. Between each strike, pause one beat and recognize the silence left behind, like a dry patch of sand after a wave recedes. If a fear intrudes, let it become another tone, and you remain the listener, not the tone. After a few minutes, the room will remain unchanged, but the sky within you will have broadened, brightened, ready for sleep or a peaceful evening. When the night grew deep, the teacher closed the veranda door, and the bell's sound had already melted into the sky. All that remained was the smell of old wood and the lingering scent of tea in the air. The teacher whispers, "Tomorrow we will speak of the key always in the pocket that many forget. Because the door of the heart is often open, yet we struggle trying to force it open." The novice bows in assent. holding in his heart the echo of the bell as though preserving a small light in his chest. The night corridor leads them back to the room, and silence follows behind like a gentle friend needing no introduction. The next morning the sky was calm as a blank page. Birds early in song cast delicate notes across the temple roof. The teacher bids the novice walk the hallway, then turn into a seldom visited room. The room has only a dark wooden door. Its hinges whisper ever so faintly with each passing breeze. On the door sits an aged bronze lock, seeming solid and unmoving. The teacher stands before it, places his hand on the lock, then lowers it, saying that many stand before the door of their heart thinking it locked tight. They believe that to enter peace they must break the door, use reason as a hammer or leverage effort as a crowbar. Then the teacher slowly reaches into his robe pocket, draws out a slender, worn key, inserts it into the lock, and turns gently. The lock opens without any harsh sound, only a soft sigh. Like someone waking from sleep, the teacher looks at the novice, asking if he sees. The key was always in the pocket. Gentle attention, breath, the feeling of feet touching earth. These are the keys. The door never refused anyone. We forgot to check our own pocket. They step into the room. Light from a small window falls on the tile floor like a carpet of gold. In one corner is an old bookshelf, in the center, a low table and a clay vessel holding a few dry bamboo branches. Everything is simple, like a room waiting for its resident to return. The teacher tells the novice to sit and place his hand over his chest. When fear rises, when thoughts wander like a swarm of bees fleeing a hive, try something tiny. Touch your chest. Remind yourself, I am here. Then open the door by breathing a deep breath into your belly. No argument with fear, no dialectic with thought. Just reach into your pocket. Draw the key, insert it, and turn. Everything else will unfold by itself. The novice sat quietly, trying to follow each instruction. He realized that each deep breath in and out was like the small turning of a key. At times, an old question would arise, as though the door were closing again. He did not force it open. He just repeated the same motion. Touch the chest. Name the present. Turn gently. Strangely, the door opened again. He understood that the key rusts not because the door is hard, but because the hand forgets and leaves it unused. When the key is used often, the lock moves smoothly. In the silence of the room, he heard clearly the blood flowing in his vessels, his belly rising and falling. A bat quietly sleeping somewhere in the roof timber. These ordinary sounds became signs that the door was open, like cool wind entering after many hot days. The teacher stood and went to the bookshelf, took down a thin volume, the cover worn and torn, the pages stained by old sunlight. He did not open the book. He gently placed it on the table. He said that knowledge is like exquisite new keys, but without the hand they are only ornaments. The hand here is the habit of returning. Every day, once, morning or late afternoon, when you feel heaviness in your heart, open the door by breathing 3 counted breaths, by looking at a still point, by placing your hand on some part of the body. Then sit in your room a few minutes. There is no judge, no dark anticipation, just light passing through the window and a dry bamboo branch standing straight. Do that long enough, and you will know peace is not a destination. It is the room that has always been with you. They left the room, letting the door rest ajar. The teacher led the novice into the courtyard, stopping before a stranger lingering and looking around. The man spoke in a weary voice. He had traveled far seeking a master to heal overthinking. He had sat in meditation for hours, yet his mind remained stuck in alleys. The teacher invited him to sit on the temple steps and poured an ordinary cup of tea. He did not speak of any method. He only said, "Hold the cup with both hands and feel its weight in your palms." The stranger did so. His eyes softened, his shoulders lowered. The teacher continued, "You thought you needed a powerful charm, a grand answer, but sometimes the key is right here, in the sense of weight and warmth, in the swirling tea, in the scent of a leaf, When you place your hand and attention in the same spot, the lock opens. Fear finds no space to expand. The guest bowed his head in thanks, as though retrieving something long lost. Late afternoon, clouds receded behind the mountains, and the temple yard opened under a clear sky. The teacher asked the novice to walk back and forth on the tile path, each step silently repeating a short phrase. Left step, here. Right step, now. The rhythm moved like a spring, eyes looking ahead without haste. This simple practice became a little key hung at his side. Each time his mind wanted to tunnel into imagination, he only needed to hear those two words, here, now. The door reopened. There was no need to battle the darkness at the hallway's end. The light of present presence is already enough to burn in your hand. At sunset, they sat on the step, watching bats draw soft paths across the violet sky. The teacher said some people spend a lifetime collecting rare keys they seldom use. Others have only a rough key but open their door every day. Wisdom lies in knowing how to use the simplest key at the right moment. A breath, a footstep, a bodily anchor, a small full act. When these small acts are repeated with tenderness, fear no longer has the shadow to magnify, and overthinking loses its audience. Deep into night, the temple bells rang once, delicate as a silken thread, and the valley wind blew cool. The novice returned to his room and closed his day by placing his hand over his chest and again turning the invisible key. He heard the lock click open, softly, almost unbelievably simple. In that opening, sleep arrived as the homeowner crossing the threshold. No knock, no noise, just the return. Outside, the trees ceased whispering. Inside, a gentle lit room awaited him for rest. If you are listening now, you may too be standing before a door that seems stiff. Try feeling into your pocket the key in your own way, perhaps by placing your hand over your belly and breathing 3 counted breaths. Perhaps by standing and taking 3 slow steps, listening to your feet. Perhaps by holding a warm cup and sensing its heat spreading. Do not argue with the door. Do not threaten yourself. Just slide the key in and turn. When the door opens, you will see inside not a noisy treasure, but a quiet room with a wooden chair, a thin curtain, and enough light for you to smile. From that room, we can gently step forward to the next story, where a small boat moored at the riverbank will teach us about waiting without restlessness, going without leaving the shore of your own being. That morning the river lay still like a ribbon across the mountain's base. The sandy shore bore faint bird tracks. Lingering mist clung to the water's surface. In front of the temple pier a small wooden boat lay tethered with old rope, its body aged by time. A patina on the hull leaving a woody scent on the fingertips. The teacher led the novice to the bank and told him to sit at the boat's prow. The river flowed slowly, as though listening to itself. The teacher said, "There are days when you want to cross immediately, but the water is not favorable. The wind lingers on the hills. At such times, forcing only breaks the oar and stirs the heart. Waiting does not mean doing nothing. It means listening to the river's pulse." Overthinking sprouts when you try to clutch the future with unsteady hands, while peace arrives when you rest the oars in the boat's hull and follow the river's flow. The teacher untied the rope. The boat drifted a little. Then he took up the oar. Each stroke was like a short punctuation mark, not hurried, not drawn out. The novice sensed the boat's body merge with the current. Water hitting the hull made a steady song. Around a bend, another boat drifted downstream, unattended, carried by wind and current. It bumped lightly into their boat's side, producing a small thud, making their boat quiver like a breath. The novice's instinct was to brace, shoulders tensing as if expecting a reproach or upheaval. But the teacher only smiled, his hand steady, eyes soft in the haze. "Did you resent that boat?" he asked. The novice shook his head. "It is empty. No one deliberately struck me." The teacher nodded. "Often the fear in you is like an empty boat. It drifts to you by the wind of habit and the river of memory. Touches you causing vibrations in body and ripples in heart. You imagine someone steering it. And you build a story. If you understand it is empty, you just steady your balance and continue. The boat continued drifting, the reed shores appearing then receding. The teacher asked the novice to place one hand on his belly, one hand on the boat's side, feeling two rhythms overlapping. The breath in and out, the water rising and falling. If you only look toward what is not yet arrived, your heart is like an oar held in mid-air. Place your oar in the water at the right time. Pull a stroke just sufficient, and then let the river do its part. In life too, sometimes act, sometimes wait, sometimes just hold direction. Fear often erupts in the boundary between wanting and having, while peace blossoms when you agree with the natural rhythm of the river's tide. The novice drifted with the boat a while, until they glided into a mild whirlpool. The surface of the river twisted into quiet circles, like a mysterious play of wind and the sandy bottom. He felt a flash of worry, imagining the boat might be held back. The teacher gently tilted the oar, changed its angle just a little, and the boat slid out of the whirlpool, light as a leaf drifting. The teacher said, "There are whirlpools in the mind that you try to escape by force. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. You only need to shift the angle of your attention. From why did they say that to how many breaths do I need now? From imagining the worst to noticing the soles of your feet on the floor. From planning each step to sipping water slowly. A small change can free the boat from the whirlpool. To change the angle is the wisdom of softness we learn from the branch. It is the little key unlocking a stuck lock. It is the faint bell reminding us that all sounds have their ending." On the river floated a few golden leaves, a kingfisher dove, leaving ripples, then flew away, the sound of its wings cutting the air like a thin blade. The teacher motioned to moor the boat at a shallow sandbank. They sat there, listening to water trickle through sand, watching the sun lift off the reeds. Honey-colored light poured onto the boat. He said, "Waiting is not suppression or stagnation. Waiting is sitting on the riverbank of the present, so your eyes can see farther, unobscured by the haze of impatience. When you wait in peace, you will know when the water is favorable, and then a single oar is enough to carry you across. But if you wait in anxiety, even favorable water will not seem enough to you." By midday, the wind shifted. The river's surface rippled with bright folds. The teacher said it was time to return. This time, he handed the oar to the novice. The novice held it softly, dipped it into the water, pulled a stroke neither too long nor too short. The boat obeyed, turning a small path and slipping forward. Inside him, a familiar voice rose. "Is this right? Will I make it before the rain? Will I manage if the wind grows?" He recognized that voice as the empty boat from earlier. He nodded to it rather than argue, then shifted his eyes back to the rhythm of the water. Smiling very lightly, everything felt just enough, like a song finding its own tempo. When the boat reached the dock, the teacher tied the rope, touched the prow as one might touch a friend before parting. He said, "If one day you find you must wait, do not let waiting become a prison. You may wait and still live fully. Wait and sip tea. Wait and hear a bell. Wait and take 3 slow steps. You can move while staying shoreside in yourself, because that shore is not land. It is tender attention. When the shore follows you, you need not fear distance." At dusk, they sat on the wooden steps watching the river change colors. The novice quietly asked, "How can I know when to paddle and when to drift?" The teacher answered, "Listen to the body first, then listen to the river. If your body is exhausted, that is the call for rest. If your body is ready and the river opens, that is the call for action. If your body draws inward and the river swirls, that is the call to wait in mindful presence." These 3 calls alternate, like morning, noon, and evening. None is bad, none permanent. Listen well, and fear will shrink, because you need not control the whole sky. You only answer the question of this moment. Night came. Before closing the door, the novice stood by the dock, gazing at the river dark as a deep silk, hearing insects weave a soft acoustic tapestry. He placed his hand on his belly and sensed another boat drifting within him. The boat of breath, of heart, of subtle life. He knew tomorrow perhaps empty boats would come ashore again, perhaps sudden whirlpools, but he also knew he had learned how to tie the tether of attention. Release the oar at the right time, and most importantly, how to smile at waiting. If you are hearing this, perhaps somewhere in your day you are also at your own waiting dock. A message not replied, an appointment not arrived, a result not published. See whether you are holding the oar mid-air in still water. Try placing your hand over your belly. Exhale deeply, and imagine tying your rope of attention to the shore of now. When the waters favor, you will know, your body will feel light and your eyes open. When they do not, you will also know. The ground under your feet will be steady and your heart will no longer beat to the rhythm of a clock. Thus you will proceed without leaving your shore. And from this quiet dock, we may gently step into the next story, where a small market in morning light, voices calling, the scent of warm cakes, will teach how to dwell amidst many sounds and still hear the gentle voice within. The novice walked past the row of noodle stalls, until the teacher paused before an old woman selling bamboo chopsticks. The pears stood straight and neat, their tips polished smooth as water-worn stone. The woman explained that a few pears had slight cracks, no one wanted them, so she sold them cheap. The teacher chose one with a small crack, lifting it gently as though it were a rain-wetted twig. He asked the novice, "Do you think this pear is still usable?" The novice replied, "Yes, cracked, but sturdy. In the hand it still feels balanced." The teacher nodded and said, "So are we. Who among us does not carry small cracks? Hidden worries, old stories that reappear? But a crack does not render us useless. It only reminds us to treat ourselves with more gentleness. When you fear, do not cast yourself aside as people throw away cracked chopsticks. Hold lightly, use with care, wash with warm water, dry where the wind can reach. Gradually you will learn to live with your fractures without having them become reasons for despair." A man hurried by, nearly knocking over a basket of apples held by a young woman. A few rolled free, her face flushing as she stooped and muttered. The novice, by habit, rose to intercede, his mind already staging a little court of judgments. But the teacher bent, picked up 2 of the apples, placed them back in the basket, looked at both the woman and the man with the same calm gaze, and simply said, "There are many people today. Let all walk one slower beat." In that moment, the young woman softened, the man stopped, bowed his head in apology, and the air around the basket seemed to still. As they moved on, the teacher said, "In the marketplace of life, when the mind wants to become judge, try being the keeper of rhythm instead. Keeping rhythm does not mean total silence. It means choosing a stone to drop into the pond, so the water stills. Once the rhythm is gentle, right and wrong emerge on their own, without the gabble of anger. Overthinking is a court that sits all night. Keeping rhythm is turning off lights at the right time." They entered a small food booth at a corner of the market. The owner ladled hot porridge for each of them. Steam blurred the gentleman's glasses beside them. The sound of spoons clinking bowls spread like rain's rhythm. The teacher told the novice to eat slowly, to count 3 spoonfuls as 3 breaths. Each spoonful is a pause for the mind. The novice ate, and noticed something surprising. Amid the clamor outside, he could clearly hear the sound of his own spoon, as though he heard his footsteps in a road he knew. The market need not disappear. He only needed his own path within it. The teacher said, "Quiet is not a place to escape life. Quiet is a path opened within life. That path is paved with tiny tiles. One slow spoonful, one gentle word, one hand on the heart, one nod to a stranger." They passed by the pottery stall. A small bowl, glazed blue, had a chip on its rim. The seller had marked it down. The teacher lifted it, turning it gently in the sunlight. At the chipped place, the light lingered longer. The blue glaze deepened in color and dimension. He said, "Sometimes life loses a corner so light may rest there." If you demand perfect wholeness, you lose the places where light stops, where fear may be looked at squarely and become a gentle teacher. The novice's eyes widened. He remembered how often he had scolded himself for imperfection, digging deeper into his cracks with harsh inner words. He now understood that when he sees a crack, he might place it in sunshine and see what light speaks. When the sun rose high and the market was loudest, the teacher stood at the exit, telling the novice to walk a short circuit and return. The novice stepped slowly, uttering silently with each step, "Here, now." Suddenly someone called out. Another greeted. A long vendor's shout trailed behind. The sounds no longer snatched him away. They flowed past like people in a stream. And he was the bank of sand. Upon returning, his eyes were bright, as though freshly washed by cool water. The teacher asked, "What did you hear?" The novice replied, "I heard my own voice among many voices." The teacher nodded. "That is the bell in your chest. It is not loud, but it does not get lost. When you hear it, you will not be dragged by the market, nor do you need the market to be silent. You walk through it as if through a garden, bees, butterflies, wind, and a soft trail known only to you. If you are listening, your day may also be like a marketplace, many tasks pressing, many sounds demanding replies. You do not need to close the market. You only need to find that small stone to balance the needle again. It might be a deep breath as you open your computer, a warm drink before a meeting, a glance out the window before answering a message, a phrase to maintain rhythm when voices rise. You do not need to be perfect. Just eat one slow spoonful. Place a chipped bowl in sun and listen to your small bell. Through each small gesture, fear becomes a passerby, and overthinking turns into distant calls no longer scripting your mind. And when you pass through the market without losing yourself, you will smile, turning into a narrow alley beside it where another story awaits, about a small wooden bridge spanning a quiet canal, where the very next step may carry you far. By midday, sunlight stretched like a long ray along the mountain slopes. A light breeze carried the scent of ripening rice from distant fields down to the temple. The teacher turned into the narrow lane beside the market, where a simple wooden footbridge crossed a slender canal. The bridge was low and rustic. The boards had been worn smooth by countless feet. Between the planks were narrow cracks through which the canal water breathed. The novice paused at the bridge's beginning, looking down at the murky river swirling under, carrying banana leaves drifting gently across. He hesitated, the wind stirring the water, conjuring fast images in his mind of slipping, of falling, of what might happen if he took a wrong step. The teacher stood beside him, his gaze cast across the other side, voice soft as water murmuring beneath the boards. "The other side is only one step away," he said, "but one step can sometimes feel as wide as a river if the mind runs ahead of the feet. Try walking with the smallest possible step." The novice looked down at his canvas sandals, his toes already brushing the edge of a plank. He inhaled slowly, exhaled slowly, and placed his foot on the first plank. The wood felt cool beneath his sole, like a greeting. He paused a beat, then brought the second foot onto the next plank. Beneath the bridge, the canal whispered. A little leaf drifted away from the mass of green, caught in a ray of sun. On the third step, the novice realized fear had not vanished, but it no longer yanked him backward. It stood apart, like a careful companion cautioning him. The teacher followed a quiet pace behind him, keeping distance enough not to rush but not to abandon. Each step spoken, "Here, now." After only a few steps, halfway across, the novice surprised himself that what felt like a long span had been woven from many very short segments. In the middle of the bridge was a plank slightly warped, forming a small bump. The novice faltered when his toe touched that raised point. A flurry of inner scenarios flickered in his mind, wanting to step back, to leap across, to call the teacher for assurance. But the teacher spoke softly. "No need to leap. No need to retreat. Just shorten your stride. Step smaller, and you will find ground right under your toes." and the bump becomes no more than a gentle arc in your story. The novice obeyed, lowering his posture, stepping carefully over the bump. Unexpectedly, everything became still as a leaf touching the shore. He understood deeply. Often what terrifies us is not the obstacle itself, but the length of the stride we recklessly exaggerate. The novice and teacher crossed safely to the other side and stopped beneath a large cotton tree, where white blossoms drifted down like snow. The teacher asked him to sit on a stone bench and look back at the bridge. From here the bridge looked slender, like a stroke drawn across the water. Above it, the young blue sky. The teacher spoke. In your work and in your long nights, you often wish to leap instantly to the safe shore. Your mind constructs giant steps, and therefore you see them as impossible. But life moves by very small steps. Writing a few lines of an email, cleaning a corner of a room, sitting in meditation for 5 minutes, speaking an apology in a short sentence. Each small step is a plank laid firmly beneath the foot. Overthinking blossoms when you look only at the far shore and forget the planks beneath your feet. Peace arrives when your eyes return to the soles, to the grain of wood, to the breath. A woman carrying a child crossed the bridge. The child clung to the mother's shirt, tiny feet hesitant on the planks. The mother did not rush. She reminded the child to look down and smiled. The teacher observed and said, "Within each of us is a child learning to walk by small steps. When you panic, let that child lead you. It will place its feet on the firmest parts of the ground." It does not teach philosophy, it touches reality. All fears shrink when we touch the present, the wood, the skin, the warmth, the scent of wind. Then the bridge need not widen. Your heart is wide enough to walk across. On the bank, a young man stood holding a bundle of bamboo, hesitating whether to carry it across or wait for help. The teacher approached and asked what he planned to do. The youth said he wanted to carry it across to repair the fence, but feared the weight and slipping. The teacher pointed to the bridge and said, "You could cut the bundle into smaller parts, carry a bit at a time, or wait until the wood and planks are dry." The young man nodded, divided the bamboo into 3 parts, and in just a few trips had them neatly tied on the far side. The novice watched and a small smile arose in his heart. He recalled how he once carried the whole bundle of a day and then reproached himself for weakness, when the only path was to break it into smaller loads. The teacher said, "The wisdom of the small step lies in knowing your body's limit and the pulse of the day. That is not retreat. That is how you go farther." A late afternoon breeze touched the water's edge. Gentle ripples glimmered below the bridge's planks. The teacher asked the novice to stand and cross the bridge again, as though engraving a new path into his body. This time the novice walked more naturally, not counting steps, but hearing clearly the wood beneath his feet. Mid-bridge he paused, gazing at the grain stretching along, noticing faint old scratches like lines of time. He realized that many before him had feared, crossed, laid small steps in the right places, and those steps made the bridge reliable. The scratches do not weaken the bridge, they testify to those who continued onward. He continued over the bridge without realizing when he began to smile. They rested by the canal's bank. The teacher offered him a piece of cake wrapped in banana leaf, still fragrant. The teacher said, "When night comes and many thoughts arise, try making a very short list of small steps you can do this evening, like turning off one more lamp, drinking a cup of warm water, folding a shirt, sitting still for 3 minutes. You do not have to resolve your life, only place one plank where needed. Once you place one, the next will appear. Before you realize it, you cross the river without counting. If fear appears along the way, shorten your stride, as when passing over the bump on the bridge. The shorter the steps, the more ground there is to place your foot." The sun sank low, golden light broken across the water. Before leaving the bank, the teacher spoke softly as to the wind. Every long journey is woven from very short moments of awakening. You do not need a grand leap, you need repeated returns. Each return is a bridge plank newly laid. The novice nodded, his heart calm like water after a breeze passes. He knew the night might still whisper anxious thoughts, but he also knew he had learned how to shorten his steps. Place planks in the right spots, and cross. If you are listening, you too may have a wooden bridge somewhere. It is a call you hesitate to make, a page you fear to open, a corner of a room you avoid. Try standing at the start. Take a long inhalation. Feel the foot touching ground. Choose the first plank. A tiny but real act. Write one sentence. Wash one cup. Fold one shirt. Send a short message. Then pause, breathe, and place another plank. When you meet a bump, shorten your step. You will be surprised how the far shore becomes no longer distant. When you rediscover your small stride, we will turn into a narrow path up the hill, where an old pine will teach us how to sit firm in strong wind yet still hear the sprouting shoot beneath the earth. As afternoon waned, the trail up the hillside opened under a gentle sky. High winds threaded long lines, the whisper like the sea brushing a distant shore. The teacher and novice climbed slowly, each step rustling dry pine needles beneath. At the hilltop stood an ancient pine, its trunk rough, dark with time, rings of wood traced like rivers now dried. Scars from old storms threaded down its side. Beneath the leaf litter sprouted soft green shoots, delicate as whispers from the earth. The teacher did not speak hastily. He seated himself on a low rock, leaning against the pine's trunk. The tree swayed in wind as though a banner, but the trunk remained rooted. The scent of resin drifted faint. "Sit like this, pine tree," he said, "so that the wind may converse with its branches while the trunk stands firm here." The novice sat alongside, back straight but soft, his hands resting on his knees. He closed his eyes and listened to wind through the foliage, to tiny drops of pine needles falling, to the slender silence between gusts. Strangely, when he stopped chasing every wind current, he began hearing a deeper rhythm beneath, like the earth breathing. The teacher whispered that within us also lies a trunk and many branches. The leaves are thoughts, expectations, fears fluttering in wind. When the wind blows strong, leaves will tremble. This is natural. But if you forget the trunk, you will believe your whole self is leaves and be swept away. Place attention on the trunk, on the spine touching the rock, on the weight of your hips grounded. From that steadiness, let branches sway with wind but not struggle. Peace is not the wind ceasing. Peace is the trunk knowing its place in the wind. A sudden stronger wind surged. The pine's crown bowed and then sprang back, leaves rustling like 100 gentle hands clapping. The novice felt his heart skip a beat, memories of past storms surfacing, nights shaken by nightmares, questions of tomorrow threading through his mind. He opened his eyes and looked into the tree's trunk, noting its silent concentric rings. The teacher placed his hand upon the trunk. The teacher's dark fingers rested quietly, like a small stone. He said, "People often think overcoming fear means defeating the wind. But the tree does not need to defeat the wind. It learns to converse by its roots. You are the same. Let your roots reach into the present. Ask the body what it needs, perhaps a loosened shoulder, a relaxed brow, tongue resting softly, a half centimeter deeper in the belly's breath. Each small care is a root. When roots touch the earth, the top will shake less." The teacher picked up a fallen pine twig and held it to the novice's ear. "Listen," he said. The novice brought the twig close and heard the faint scent of sap, and a minute sound, like the snapping of a bud just beginning to unfurl. The teacher smiled. "Even amid the wind, shoots still sprout. In your inner life, too, even in stormy days, there are small things growing quietly, a gratitude, a kind intention, a new habit just stirring." Overthinking often magnifies the wind and ignores the sound of the bud. If you sit long enough, you will hear that little burst, and it will teach you that growth does not need noise. Fear is the wind, hope is the bud. Both are present, and you have the right to choose where to place your ear. They sat for a long while. Time stretched like a thin thread. The sun shifted slightly, The pine's shadow on the ground flickered like a thin curtain in the breath of the hill. The teacher told that when he was a young student, whenever his mind was troubled, he climbed up this hill. He learned to count gusts of wind as one counts beads on a string. 1 gust is 1 bead. 2 is 2 beads, until 10. Then he would exhale as though putting the string down. In this way, he allowed wind to pass through him without becoming the wind. He also learned to place his hands on the earth 3 times before descending the hill, as if returning what is superfluous to the land. These little rituals are not superstition. They are a way to remind oneself that there is earth as companion, not a life lived only inside the head. The novice bowed his head, placed the palm of his hand on the earth, feeling its moisture and coolness seep between his fingers like a hidden stream. In him, a quiet trust arose. He did not need to invent an anchor, for the earth itself is the anchor. He thought of many long nights past, lying awake listening to a clock's tick, letting his mind conjure storms. He realized that the next time he would sit up, place his feet on the floor, touch something in the room, name 3 things present, and count 10 imagined gusts passing outside the window. By doing so, he would no longer be alone with trembling leaves. He would have body, roots, and earth alongside. When the light began to tilt across the hillside, the teacher rose and said, "Let us walk a circle around the pine trunk." Each step they trod a layer of fallen needles, soft underfoot. The teacher said, "In work, in relationships, in fear, there will be days when the wind is stronger than usual. Allow the branches to tremble without panic. Shift your bedtime slightly. Drop 1 appointment. Eat more simply. Skip 1 coffee." Like a tree knows how to fold back leaves in dry seasons to preserve water, wisdom in peace is knowing how to adjust, neither forcing nor giving up, just finding a pace suitable for the wind. They paused under the pine. The teacher pointed to old lightning scars. "This mark is from a storm long ago," he said, "when a large branch broke and the temple's roof almost failed. Yet through rain and sun the sap healed it, and the trunk gained a new ring of wood. Inside us too are scars, a past failure, a broken bond, a word that wounded. If we sit quietly long enough and tend with gentleness, that scar can become a place where the sap flows more vigorously, the trunk more resilient. The fear about scars is the wind. The scar itself does not block new buds. What blocks them is when we spin the wound over and over in thought, forgetting that the body has already been preparing a path of healing." The wind suddenly softened. The forest was quiet as a blessing. The teacher and novice sat with their backs against the trunk, each leaning to one side, breathing together in a shared calm. There, the novice's chain of thoughts dropped like fallen leaves, light and timely, without needing to collect, without needing to cling to branches. He felt a clear space open, not forced, like when the rain has just ceased and sunlight hovers at the leaf edges. The teacher said, "When you know how to sit like a tree, you will walk like the wind, not rushed, not clinging, carrying the scent of sap and the sound of budding with every step." If you are hearing this, find your own old pine trunk right where you sit. Sit with back upright yet soft, feet grounded, and imagine small roots weaving into the floor, into the earth beneath. Listen for the wind of today. It may be an email, a message, traffic outside. Let the leaves tremble, but keep your trunk in place by placing your hand on your belly and counting 10 breaths. Or placing your hand on the table and naming 3 things you touch. If a memory returns like an old lightning scar, breathe in along its line and breathe out as if pouring healing sap. Then pause to hear the bud inside you, that small kind intention ready to burst. When you hear the bud, you will know you do not live just to avoid wind, you live to grow. The sun slipped behind a thin ridge of clouds, the path down the hill opening like a dark ribbon beneath their feet. The teacher said it was time to return. Dinner was likely ready, and the night blooming jasmine in the temple yard would soon flower. Before leaving, the teacher placed his hand on the pine once more, as greeting a dear friend. The wind stirred again in the branches, but the trunk remained still. They walked down the path through the soft needle carpet, the sound of the pine floor underfoot like a closing song. From that silence, we may stroll into the next story, where an ancient well in the temple yard will teach us that the sky does not only lie above, but lies deep within, and clear water always reflects most clearly when no one disturbs it. In the dusk, a purple veil settled over the temple courtyard. The scent of night-blooming jasmine drifted through the stones. In the center stood an old stone well, its mossed walls green, its round opening like an old coin from bygone eras. The teacher led the novice there and asked him to pause, not step forward, but just stand and gaze down. The water in the well was deep and still, capturing within it the twilight-stained sky. At first, a light breeze stirred, causing a few blossoms to fall and ripple the surface. The clouds above as reflected in the well trembled too. The teacher said, "The sky above remains unchanged. It is the mirror that moves. Your mind is like this well. When someone throws a stone, reflections shatter. If you lean too close, you see fragments. If you step back and let the water still, the whole sky returns." The novice sat at the well's rim, arms wrapped around knees, eyes focused on the water's surface. He saw his reflection blending with cloud colors, a spinning leaf slowing, then pausing. The teacher dropped a dry leaf gently onto the water. No force. It touched the surface like a greeting. Ripples spread, quietly opening thin circles, then dissolve into the stillness. "Watch this ripple as a thought," the teacher said. "It comes, it grows, it fades. If you rush to extinguish it, your hand will muddy the water more. If you remain still, just for a moment, the water will calm itself." The challenge is not to make the water still, but to let it be still. After a time, the teacher hoisted a bucket of well water. The rope scraped against the stone rim with a faint sound. Water poured into the bucket in gentle drops, like compressed rain. The teacher handed it to the novice and invited him to take a sip. Cold depth satisfied the throat, carrying the scent of stone and the gentle darkness of earth. He said, "The clearest water lies deepest and stillest. The clearest mind lies in the place of fewest disturbances. When fear rises, when thoughts swarm like birds, draw a bucket from your inner well by sitting quietly for 3 minutes. No conclusion, no judgment, no haste, just sit. 3 minutes is enough for even the largest wave to dissolve. Then speak or act with the tone of still water, not the tone of the swirl." Near the well, there was an old bucket of stone, with a small crack along its side. The teacher took the bucket, lowered it into the water, lifted it up half full, and placed it on the tiled floor. A few drops trickled through the crack, shimmering under the lantern light. The teacher said that no bucket stays perfect forever, but it can still carry water if we know how to walk at the right pace. People are the same. When you know where your cracks are, you slow down while carrying things that might spill. You set the bucket down on level ground, and you remind yourself not to lean too much to the right. Understanding your fragile spots makes you gentle with yourself. And when you are gentle with yourself, the water inside becomes clearer. Because you panic less. When you panic, the water clouds. When you are gentle, the water settles. A little girl from the village ran into the temple yard, holding a wooden ladle, asking for water. The teacher filled her ladle and told her to hold it with both hands. She carried it carefully with her 2 tiny palms, walking slowly across the stone steps. The water rippled a little but did not spill. Watching her, the teacher said that most of our fear comes from trying to carry life with only one hand. The other hand is busy worrying about tomorrow. But when you use both hands, meaning both body and mind are fully present, the water stays calm in the ladle. Hold what you are doing with both hands. When you eat, eat with 2 hands of attention and gratitude. When you speak, speak with 2 hands of truth and kindness. When you are afraid, be afraid with 2 hands of breathing in and breathing out. Every act is like carrying a ladle of water across the steps. Less spilling, less regret, The teacher invited the novice to stand and walk once around the well. With each step, the sky reflected in the water shifted. At times, the moon hid behind the edge of a banyan leaf. At times, it lay in the middle of a clear sky. At times, a breeze broke it into silver fragments. The teacher asked whether the sky above had changed. The novice shook his head. The sky remained the same. The teacher nodded. Worry often pushes us so close to the well that we think the whole sky has shattered. But when we straighten our back and step away, we see that the sky has never changed. Only the well is telling a different story. Practice stepping back before believing something too quickly. Stepping back gives your mind space. The way a ripple needs time to return to stillness. Night deepened, and stars appeared like grains of salt scattered across the sky. The well's surface now shone like a silver plate. The teacher told the novice to count 3 stars in the water. Then lift his eyes and count 3 stars in the sky. He did so, and noticed that the stars above seemed to multiply after he had first counted those in the well. The teacher smiled. When you can see the sky inside, the sky outside looks bigger too. But if you only look at the sky above and forget the well, you may despair whenever clouds arrive. Remember that inside you there is always a well, as long as you do not stir it up. Suddenly a stronger wind rose, and someone rushed down the nearby alley, shaking the ground lightly. The water rippled. The novice looked down and saw the moon break into pieces. He felt a moment of sadness, then remembered the teacher's words. He stood still. He did not lean closer. He did not try to fix it. He did not speak. He just stood still, like a small tree. After a few breaths, the broken pieces of moon slowly joined again, a full circle returning. He exhaled as if releasing a sigh he had been holding too long. The teacher placed a hand on his shoulder and whispered that peace does not come from never having ripples. It comes from waiting patiently for the ripples to fade. If you are listening now, perhaps in your day there is also a well waiting for you to sit beside. It may be a chair by the window, a kitchen table late at night, or the edge of your bed after the house has grown quiet. Bring there a warm ladle of water or a cup of tea. Sit down for 3 minutes with no goal. Hold your cup with both hands, the way the little girl held her ladle of water, and let your eyes rest on one steady point, like the edge of a well. When thoughts rise like ripples, just name them, ripples, and wait. When fear wants to shout, imagine yourself stepping back from the well's edge. When a memory clouds the water, drop in a leaf of gratitude and let it open its circles until it fades. That alone is enough for the sky inside you to appear clearer, not because the sky has changed, but because the water has grown calm. Later that night, the teacher and the novice covered the well with a thin wooden board. Not heavy, like closing a book they had finished reading. They walked across the veranda, their footsteps soft on the tiles, the scent of night jasmine trailing them back to their rooms. Before going inside, the teacher said that tomorrow they would walk through the bamboo forest on the eastern slope, where the leaves brushed against each other to create a music both delicate and strong. There, you will learn that a hollow bamboo can let the wind pass through without breaking. And in its emptiness, the wind becomes a song. From the still well of today to the bamboo forest of tomorrow, the path is the same, returning to the bright open space at the heart of all things. The next morning on the eastern side of the temple opened with the sound of bamboo leaves whispering like distant rain. The narrow path into the forest wound across damp earth, where dew clung to the tips of grass, and sunlight sprinkled thin streaks of gold along the bamboo joints. The bamboo stood close together without crowding, green and straight, with slender leaves brushing gently against one another. The valley wind rose and flowed through the forest, playing a melody no one had composed. The teacher paused at the forest's edge, placed a hand on a bamboo stalk, and felt its light vibration in his palm. Then he told the novice that today they would learn the lesson of emptiness. The novice touched the cool stalk, hearing the wind pass through it like the gentle sigh of a friend. He suddenly thought of the nights he had tried to block each thought as if building walls. The more he blocked, the more weary he became, until all that remained was a thick wall and a dark room. The teacher smiled. Do you see? Bamboo does not resist the wind with walls. Because it is hollow, the wind flows through. And that is why the bamboo forest sings instead of breaking. They walked deeper into the forest, the bamboo forming invisible gateways, light falling in shimmering pieces on the ground. The teacher chose an old root, sat down on a patch of dry earth, and signaled the novice to sit across from him. Breathe in like the wind passing through bamboo, the teacher said, and breathe out like the wind moving on into the forest. Do not hold anything. Do not push anything away. Just let your breath become hollow. The novice closed his eyes, imagining himself as a bamboo stalk, hollow from throat to belly, hollow so that the wind could pass through without being caught. At first, thoughts still crowded in like lost birds, but when he let them fly through the empty tube and fade at the far end, he realized that stillness did not come from chasing them away. This stillness was not a dark emptiness, but a clear open space where the sound of leaf touching leaf became so distinct that he could tell the whispers from the east were deeper than those from the north. The teacher broke off a piece of dried bamboo, hollow inside, and placed it to his lips. A thin sound, delicate as a thread, rose and faded, leaving behind a silence as light as a butterfly landing. The teacher said, "When you are hollow, you become an instrument. Everything passing through your life can turn into music. A gust of wind is a note. A hurtful word is a low note. An embrace is a warm note. If you are filled with judgments and fears, the wind will only scrape out a harsh noise. If you are empty and welcoming, the wind becomes a song of both laughter and tears. Without breaking you, being hollow does not mean being useless. It means leaving space for truth to pass through. A person crowded with fears and assumptions is like a bamboo tube stuffed with straw. The wind comes only to make a dry scraping sound and smoke. A person who knows how to be hollow is one who lets the wind pass and knows the wind will move on." In a cluster of bamboo nearby, one stalk had its top broken during last year's storm. The broken part was dry and cracked, revealing a hollow core of pale gold. The teacher touched the broken edge with his finger and said that hollowness does not make bamboo weak if the stalk is flexible. The break became an opening for sunlight to reach deeper, and from that very spot a new sprout was preparing to emerge. Inside us, too, there are hollow places born of loss, of farewell, of words that left us silent. If we learn to befriend that emptiness, without rushing to stuff it full of noise and busyness, light will slip in, and from there a new sprout will grow. Overthinking often fears emptiness, so it hurries to fill it with sound and activity until it suffocates. Meditation, on the other hand, is agreeing to sit beside that space, breathing with it, letting it speak what it needs to say. The teacher plucked a bamboo leaf and placed it in the novice's palm. The leaf was so thin that its veins showed like the course of a tiny river. The teacher said, "Do not twist the leaf to test how strong it is. Let the wind teach you." The leaf swayed with the breeze, sometimes spinning atop the boy's finger like a small boat, sometimes lying still like a vessel that had reached the harbor. "Try placing your worries on your palm this way," he said. "Hold them with emptiness, not with a clenched grip. When you hold with emptiness, worries find their own lightest place to rest. When you grip, they only struggle harder." In life, some things need to be held, some things need only to be supported, and some things simply need to pass through. Emptiness helps you know which is which. In the forest, a woodcutter's child passed by, carrying a small bamboo flute with holes carved into it. As he walked, he played a simple tune, clumsy yet pure as a spring. The teacher called him over, borrowed the flute, played a short melody, and returned it. The boy smiled, ran off, and the sound of his flute drifted away among the bamboo. The teacher turned to the novice and said that sound could not exist if the craftsman had not dared to pierce holes into the bamboo. Hollowness is sometimes the result of courage, of opening doors where we once kept them shut. Make a hole for forgiveness. Make a hole for silence to enter an argument. Make a hole for sleep to slip into the night. Make a hole for a cup of warm water between two meetings. Each hole is a doorway for good wind to pass through, and music begins from there. Suddenly the wind rose strong for a moment, and the bamboo grove sang in chorus. A few tall stalks bent low, then sprang upright as soon as the gust faded. The novice placed a hand on his chest and realized that his own heart had the same rhythm of leaning and returning. He remembered times when life had forced him down, and how often he had resisted stiffly until he broke in places that did not need breaking. This time, he tried bending and returning, like bamboo that knows uprightness is a destination, not a posture to be clung to at every moment. The teacher saw this small change in the boys sitting and nodded gently, like wind passing through leaves. They stayed until the sunlight turned into soft streams of gold weaving between bamboo joints. The teacher told the novice to rise and walk slowly out of the forest, like a small breeze leaving the hollow of a stalk. Each step was a quiet thank you to every stalk and every leaf that had sung for them. At the edge of the forest, the teacher said that when night comes and the noise of your thoughts grows loud, become a bamboo stalk. Lie down. Let your belly be hollow. Let your throat be hollow. Let your mind be hollow. Hear the breath passing through. Hear the fan. Hear distant cars. Hear your heart slowing. Do not stuff it with commentary. Do not argue with memory. Let everything pass through as wind through the forest, and you will hear the music of peace. If you are listening, try bringing the lesson of the bamboo forest into your own room. Look around and see where something could be more empty. A desk too crowded. A to-do list too thick. A schedule too tight. Remove one thing from your desk. Cross off one task. Leave a gap between two calls. Then within your body, find where you can hollow out just half an inch. Relax the tongue. Soften the shoulders. Loosen the belly. When worries come, instead of sealing every gap, drill a small hole for a healthy habit to enter. A cup of warm water. A minute by the window. An early shut-off for your screen. Through these small openings, the wind will pass through your home as it does the bamboo grove, carrying with it a gentle song. The sun slowly slipped from the treetops, and the bamboo grove grew cool like a hand resting on the forehead. The teacher and the novice walked back, the path still fragrant with fresh resin, each carrying inside them a new piece of sky that had opened. The teacher spoke softly, as if to the wind, that beyond the bamboo there will be a distant shore, where you will learn to hear the waves and know that waves are only the shape of water when it meets wind and land. But before the sea, tonight sleep in the music of bamboo. Let emptiness weave your dreams, and let even dreaming be as light as wind through the green forest. A cloudy morning arrived, and the sandy path to the ocean opened like a silver carpet beneath the wide sky. The salty wind ran through their hair, the smell of seaweed lingered, and waves crashed steadily against the shore like the heartbeat of the earth. The teacher and the novice walked along the edge where white foam dissolved endlessly, seashells half buried in the sand, and sunlight sparkled far out on the water. The novice paused, watching the waves rise in the distance and then fall, feeling both drawn in and slightly afraid. Each time a larger wave rushed in, he startled, as if a sudden thought had leapt to pull him away. The teacher pointed to the horizon and asked, "What do you see?" The boy answered, "I see waves, countless, without end." The teacher smiled. "Do you also see water?" The boy hesitated, eyes puzzled, then slowly nodded. Waves are the shape of water when it meets wind and shore. Fear and racing thoughts are the shape of the mind when it meets memory and circumstance. When you see only waves, you think the ocean is restless. When you remember water, you see beneath every wave a body of depth unchanged. The teacher drew a long line in the sand with a dry branch, letting the first wave wash it away. "Do you see?" he said. "Every line will be rewritten by the ocean in its own language. So too with your mind, the hurried scribbles inside. the worst-case scenarios, the weary judgments. All will be smoothed by the gentle body of water when you let the waves do their work. The novice bent down and picked up a broken shell, its inner surface still gleaming like pearl. He whispered, "I am afraid of the days with big waves. Afraid I cannot withstand them. Afraid of being carried away." The teacher replied, "The ocean does not ask you to stand still in the middle of a wave. The ocean teaches you rhythm. When the wave comes, lean. When it withdraws, step." Peace is not the absence of waves. Peace is knowing you are water. They stepped into the shallow edge, the ripples brushing their ankles. The teacher told the novice to stand still, eyes fixed on the horizon, and count the waves as he would count his breaths. One wave coming in, one wave pulling back, the pause between them like the tiny rest at the end of each breath. In that pause, everything holds still for half a beat. The novice did as he was told, and soon realized something simple he had rarely noticed before, that waves have their own rhythm. They do not chase him. They do not resist him. They simply touch the shore and return to the sea like a story that knows how to end. Overthinking is a story that refuses to end. The ocean teaches the art of ending. The teacher bent down, picked up a round stone, and placed it in the boy's hand. Hold on to the cool weight of this stone as you listen to the waves. When the body has something real to hold, the mind is less likely to be carried away. A fisherman's child ran across the sand, holding a kite shaped like a fish, laughing brightly as the wind lifted it higher. The novice watched and suddenly understood that wind does not only cause waves, it can also raise a kite. Fear does not only knock us down, it can also be the very wind that lifts a kite if we know how to place the string in our hands. The teacher asked, "What will you do when a dark thought arrives?" The novice replied, "I will try to push it away." The teacher shook his head softly. "Push, and it will push back. Let it pass through like a wave. Call it gently with a short phrase. Then let it retreat. This is worry. This is an old memory. This is the whisper of fatigue." Then place your eyes back on the horizon, as if placing them on a point of stillness. Waves will pass, and water remains. A little while later, they met an old fisherman entangling his net. The wet cords were knotted together into a tight mass. He crouched patiently, loosening each knot without anger, without pulling hard. The teacher stopped to speak with him, and the fisherman smiled, saying that if you yank, the net tears, the fish are lost, and the hands are hurt. To untangle a net, you must follow the path of the knots, sometimes even soaking it longer in water to soften it before trying again. The teacher turned to the novice and said that nights of overthinking are also times when the net is tangled. Do not try to pull the whole mass apart with logic. Let everything soften in the water of breath. Then loosen just one knot, maybe by writing one line, sending one short message, turning off one light, drinking one glass of water, or taking one small walk around the room. In water, the net shows you where the thread begins. On the beach, a boat lay overturned, its belly exposed to dry. Old paint peeled into shapes like torn clouds. The teacher placed his hand on the hull and said that before it can sail, a boat must first dry on the shore. Before finding peace, a person must be at peace on the shore within. People are often hasty. They see beautiful waves and crave adventure. But the body is still tired. The heart still tangled. In those times, the ocean teaches us to stay ashore, to let the boat dry under the sun for a day. Staying is not giving up. Staying is preparing. In life, some afternoons call for drawing in the nets early. Some nights call for sleeping before your usual hour. Some mornings call for walking more slowly. When the body is ready, the sea is a friend. When the body is drained, the sea is a test. Wisdom is listening to your body as you listen to the waves. The novice sat down, burying half his foot in the damp sand. The fine grains held his skin as if cradling him. He thought of the times he had thrown himself into doubt, leaving himself no shore to stand on. The teacher looked at him and said that a shore is not only land, it is also the small boundary you give to your mind. Tonight, you can give your mind a shore by choosing 1 hour for thinking, then closing it afterward, like a small bay branching off from the open sea. The waves inside still move, but more gently, enough for the boats to rest. A shore is a frame for freedom, not a chain. When there is a shore, the water finds its beautiful shape. When there is a frame, the mind finds its calm rhythm. The sun lowered, and the tide offshore shifted color into deeper blue. The teacher and the novice walked along the beach toward the rocks, their surfaces soft with moss. The teacher told the novice to press his ear close to a crevice where small waves slipped in and out. The boy heard the steady breathing of the sea, like someone sleeping peacefully. He understood that beneath all the noise, there is always a deeper rhythm. Your practice, the teacher said, is to find that rhythm during the day. Even 1 minute is enough. It may be while water boils in the kettle, while waiting for the elevator, or before opening your email. Place your ear to the crevice of your day and listen to the sea breathing. That 1 minute can rescue an entire afternoon from the storm of the mind. A seabird swooped low and landed on an old wooden post. Its feathers lifted lightly in the wind, but its small feet gripped firmly. It stared out to sea, unshaken. The teacher pointed to it and said that peace is not about not feeling the wind on your feathers. It is about knowing how to hold with your feet. The feet, in our lives, our breath, body, and healthy habits. The bird does not argue with the wind. It uses it to fly when needed, and it sits when needed. People are the same. You do not need to conquer fear. You only need to know when to use it, when to sit, when to wait, and when to move. That much is enough for the waves to stop ruling you. Sunset spread gold across the water's edge. Foam tinged pink for a moment, then vanished as soon as it touched the sand. The teacher told the novice to close his eyes and imagine a drop of water falling from a wave into the ocean, losing its name as a drop, becoming the sea. You are a drop when you identify yourself only as fear, or only as a meeting, or only as a sentence someone once spoke to you. You are the sea when you remember you are larger than those names. Each time you return to that wholeness, overthinking dissolves like salt in water, not because you have thought better, but because you are no longer standing apart, pressing against yourself. If you are listening now, perhaps in your day there is also a shoreline waiting for you to visit gently in your imagination. You can sit on your bed or by a window, place your hand on your belly, and listen to the waves of your breath rising and falling. You can pick up a small stone from your desk, hold it in your palm to remember that the body has something steady to grip. You can write down one knot of your tangled net and untangle that one knot this afternoon. You can choose 1 hour as a boundary, closing your thoughts when the clock reaches it, giving your mind a small bay for restful sleep. And when a wave of thought rises, you can name it, watch it swell and fall, without chasing, letting it return to water. After a few times, you will see the shore inside you widen, the sea outside you soften, and sleep come like the tide, arriving on time without needing to be called. Night rose, and the moon cast a silver path across the water, as if someone had sprinkled glowing powder to guide the late boats. The teacher and the novice walked back to the temple, the sand beneath their feet still warm with the day's heat. Before leaving the shore, the teacher turned and bowed as if greeting the sea. Tomorrow, he whispered, we will return to a small garden behind the temple wall, where the breath of soil and the scent of leaves will teach us how to care for a day as we care for a bed of vegetables. And you will see that fear, too, can become fertilizer when tended with patience. The novice nodded, his eyes still holding the silver of the moon on the water, his chest filled with the steady breath of the sea, and on his lips a peaceful smile just ripened. The next morning, the garden behind the temple wall awoke with the warm breath of soil and the scent of wet leaves. The vegetable rows stood in neat lines, bamboo stakes marking the beds, pumpkin vines crawling across the paths to form little arches. Dewdrops clung to the edges of green cabbage leaves, sparkling like pearls waking late. The teacher led the novice through the rows, his hand brushing each leaf as if greeting old friends. "Do you hear anything?" he asked. The boy stopped, listened, and began to notice the faint sounds of roots pushing soil, of bees drifting, of earth cracking gently where a seed had just sprouted. The teacher smiled. The garden teaches us that growing is a quiet sound. Fear and noisy thoughts are only the wind rushing above the surface. Beneath, the roots move softly like threads. In one corner stood a compost bin made of old wood. The teacher opened the lid. Inside were dry leaves, straw, and vegetable peels. Things once thought of as waste. Now they were warming, steaming lightly, with a rich earthy scent. He scooped up a handful. Tiny worms wiggled and slipped into the shadows. The teacher said that fear, too, can be compost if you give it time and the warmth of attention. What you called trash yesterday may nourish a new season tomorrow. The novice watched, and in his eyes appeared memories of old nights when he had piled all his worries into one mountain, then stood staring at it helplessly. He understood now that each night, instead of building mountains, he would break them into small heaps, water them with a few slow breaths, turn them over with gentle gestures, and leave them overnight. By morning, what once frightened him would become fertile soil. The teacher led the novice to a bed of mint. Its leaves were riddled with holes from caterpillars, their edges curling like a quiet sadness. The teacher did not grow angry at the insects. He bent down, moved a few aside to the edge of the path, and sprayed the leaves with a light mist of diluted garlic water. "Do you see?" he said. "Healing is not about fighting. Healing is about adjusting. When the mind is gnawed by worry, do not strike your own head with harsh words. Use the garlic water of gentle truth. Spray lightly each day. Each night reduce a little screen time. Each morning add a glass of water. Each afternoon take a 10-minute walk. Small doses build great endurance." The novice nodded, remembering the lesson of small steps on the wooden bridge, and saw how the teachings fit together like bricks paving a path. Beneath the trellis of beans, the teacher pointed to the cords that tied the vines. Some were bound too tightly, leaving marks on the stems. Some were tied just right, giving support while allowing growth. He loosened one that was too tight and retied it with a softer knot. Boundaries are necessary, but when too tight, they break the shoots. With yourself it is the same. You need the rhythms of routine, sleep time, meal time, time to turn off the phone. But you also need soft knots of forgiveness when you are late. Fear often ties the cord too tightly, leaving our own stems unable to breathe. The wisdom of the garden is knowing when to tighten and when to loosen, when to lean and when to let go. They stopped at a bed freshly sown with seeds. At first glance, it looked empty, but leaning closer, you could see thin cracks in the soil, signs of life pressing upward. The teacher handed the novice a small watering can and told him to water as if watering a dream. Too much and the seeds wash away. Too little and they thirst. In life, gentle intentions are also seeds. You want to sleep early? Read a book, write a few honest lines. Water them with steady drops, not with hurry and not with neglect. Do not stand over them shouting, "Why have you not sprouted?" Step back half a pace. Let the wind do the wind's part, the soil do the soil's part, and you do yours. After a few mornings, you will see a green line as fine as a strand of hair. A quiet joy will rise with the sun. At the far end of the garden stood a small lemon tree, its branches bearing a few green fruits. One branch reached too low. At risk of breaking under the weight, the teacher took a knife and trimmed a side branch. The novice felt a pang of regret. "I thought more leaves would mean more fruit," he said. The teacher shook his head. "More leaves, but on a weak branch, and the tree would carry more than it could bear." Cutting back is an art of compassion. In the mind, there are also side branches of endless thinking that drain the sap. Cutting them is how you nourish what needs to grow. Your evening does not have enough sap for everything. Choose one fruit to ripen. Tonight, let it be sleep. Tomorrow, save it for a letter. Next week, nurture a new habit. Cutting back is not losing. Cutting back is saving. A cat wandered in from the kitchen veranda and curled up in the morning sun like a small ember. From time to time it opened its eyes, looked around, then drifted back into drowsiness. The teacher watched and said that a garden does not live only by doing. It lives by resting. The soil must rest after a season. The tree after flowering. The person after a day of wind. Rest is not laziness. Rest is what allows the ground to recover. When you stop thinking for a while, the mind does not die. It replenishes its sap. If you keep plowing endlessly in your head, the field turns hard. Hearing this, the novice sighed deeply, as if he had just set down a hoe. On the fence hung bags of dried seeds. The teacher chose one filled with sunflower seeds and placed it in the boy's hand. Sow 5 seeds, and only 5. Do not be greedy. The yard is small, the soil modest. If you sow too many, the sprouts crowd, and the plants grow weak. In life it is the same. A day has room for only a few wholehearted things. Leave the rest in the bag, waiting for their season. Overthinking is trying to sow them all in one afternoon. Peace is knowing your season. Together they dug small holes with their fingertips, placed the seeds like soft prayers, covered them with earth, and patted the soil as if in welcome. The wind brushed their hair. Birds called across the pumpkin trellis like a brief song. When the sun climbed higher, the teacher poured water from a clay jug and invited the novice to sit on the brick steps and look back at the garden. Everything seemed to slow, as if watching them watch. The teacher asked, "What have you learned?" The novice said, "I have learned how to turn fear into soil, to cut back the extra branches of thought, to tie with soft knots, to water with steady drops, to sow less but surely, and to rest like a cat." The teacher nodded. "You have understood the garden. From now on, when night comes and your mind begins to stir, step into the garden within. Walk to the compost bin and place inside it a conversation already finished. A forecast not yet needed. A self-criticism too heavy. Tie tomorrow's cords with just enough knots. Water the seeds of sleep with 3 drops. Turn off 1 light. Fold 1 shirt. Wash 1 bowl. Then sit on the veranda. Place your hand on your belly as if on the soil, and listen to the roots grow. If you are listening, perhaps right now you also have a garden waiting to be opened. It does not need to be real soil, only a corner of space in your room. You can begin by gathering the scraps of unfinished tasks, folding them and placing them into a box, calling it a compost bin. Each night, put 3 things inside and promise yourself to leave them there overnight. You can choose one small habit as a seed, like drinking a warm glass of water or reading 2 pages of a book, and water it steadily for a week. You can cut back 1 side branch in your schedule tonight. Say no to an hour of scrolling, and save the sap for sleep. You can tie a soft knot for yourself. If you are late one day, tie it again tomorrow, and after all that, you can sit quietly for 2 minutes like the cat in the sun, letting the soil within grow warm. When such small gestures repeat, the garden will respond with the scent of new leaves. Yesterday's fear will become fertilizer for today, and overthinking will fade into the quiet music of roots moving through the soil. The afternoon slowly withdrew from the garden, shadows lengthening across the brick path. The teacher and the novice rose, washing their hands in cool well water, the smell of soil and leaves still clinging to their fingers. Before leaving, the teacher looked toward the horizon, where a thin cloud was changing color. "Tomorrow," he said, "we will visit a small room where an old piece of calligraphy hangs. Just 1 character, and yet an entire life. There you will see how 1 character can hold up an entire night. Like a bamboo pole in the river holding a boat still." The novice nodded softly, carrying in his heart the warmth of the soil, the green of the leaves, and a new path just opened among peaceful rows of vegetables. The afternoon carried them to a small room at the end of a corridor, where sunlight fell through a square window and rested on the brick floor like a thin carpet. On the opposite wall hung an old piece of calligraphy, the paper tinted the color of honey, the dark wooden frame holding threads of time as fine as dust. On the paper was only one character. The ink deep and dark like a night lake. The brushstroke beginning at the upper left like a breath, swelling, then narrowing, and ending like a bird folding its wings. That character was peace. At its base stood a low table, with an inkstone, a brush often dipped in water, and a clear bowl reflecting the small window. The teacher invited the novice to sit before the character, saying nothing, letting the eyes do the work of eyes and the breath do the work of breath. At first, as the novice looked at the character for peace, his mind filled with other words crowding in, tasks to do, things to remember, words someone had spoken. The character before him seemed veiled by a haze of memory. The teacher stayed silent, resting his hand lightly on the inkstone as if on a friend's shoulder. After a while, he spoke slowly. This character was written in one breath, so you should also read it in one breath. Inhale to feel the beginning of the stroke, where the brush touched the paper and the writer's hand was steady. Exhale to follow the body of the character, where the ink thickens and thins like falling rain. Then pause where the brush lifted off, without rushing to find another word. The novice did as told, and strangely, the character for peace began to expand like a doorway of calm. Each time another word tried to intrude, he simply returned to the path of the ink. After a few rounds of breathing, the room itself seemed to widen, and the birds outside sounded round and whole. The teacher poured water into a small cup and invited the novice to drink. The cool taste cleansed his tongue as if it had just been wiped clean. The teacher picked up a calligraphy brush, dipped it not in ink but in water, wrote an invisible stroke on the table, and guided the boy's hand across it. "What do you feel?" he asked. The boy smiled softly. "I cannot see the character, but I can feel the path of your hand." The teacher nodded. Often we do not need more words. We need to remember the rhythm of the hand writing our life. Overthinking is when we try to hang 100 words on a narrow wall. Letters piling on letters until they become noise. Peace is being content with one word strong enough to hold a day. The character for peace does not erase the wind. It is the anchor that keeps the boat from drifting when the wind comes. A day needs only one anchor, not 10. In the corner of the room lay a roll of paper and some practice sheets. The teacher spread out a new sheet, dipped the brush in just a little ink, and handed it to the novice. "Write the character you most need tonight," he said, "but before you write, place your palm on your chest and ask what you are most lacking this evening." The boy closed his eyes. After a while he opened them and said, "I need restful sleep." The teacher nodded. "Then write peace 3 times. Each time in one breath." The boy held the brush, his fingertips against the smooth bamboo handle. He inhaled and placed the tip down. The first stroke trembled like a leaf meeting wind, but then steadied. The second was firmer, like feet learning the pattern of wood grain. The third flowed in one continuous breath, ending with a quiet pause that fit like a closing door. Looking at the 3 characters breathing on the paper, the boy felt his own chest breathing more slowly in rhythm. The teacher gathered the old sheets from the drawer. Some were crowded with overlapping characters, others just tangled blotches of ink. He showed them to the boy and explained that once he too had written too much. Every worry a word, every fear a line. The wall inside him grew so heavy that darkness hung like fog. Until one day, his own teacher silently removed the sheets, burned them into ash in the stove, and left only a single character hanging on the wall. From that day on, he no longer chased 10 words. He learned to stand beneath one. One word was enough for a season. The story fell into the boy's heart like a raindrop, cooling a patch of thirsty ground. One afternoon, a farmer came to the temple asking for ink and brush to write a sign for his small shop. He confessed that he worried constantly and had covered his shop with dozens of slogans, only for customers to laugh and walk away. The teacher showed him the calligraphy on the wall and asked what he most needed that night. The farmer wiped his hands on his shirt and whispered, "I only need enough." The teacher handed him the brush and told him to write enough once. Hang it at the door, and each morning before opening, Place his hand on it. A month later he returned smiling gently. Customers had not suddenly multiplied, but his heart no longer drifted. He no longer flared with anger over small things in the afternoon. Dinner tasted better at night. It turned out that hanging one word at the door was also hanging a steady point inside himself. The sunlight softened, and the room grew as gentle as silk. The teacher told the novice to stand and take 3 slow steps around the calligraphy. At each step viewing it from a new angle. From the left, the character looked like a stream flowing down. From the front, it rose like a tree standing tall. From the right, it was a sail filled with wind. The teacher said, "A character, when looked at closely, contains many shapes, just as your day contains many faces. But even as the view shifts, the line remains unbroken. A peaceful person is not one with only one face, but one who holds a steady line among many faces. Your steady line is your slow breath, your firm step, your hand placed on your heart when fear rises." The teacher lowered the calligraphy to eye level and handed the boy a soft cloth. Together they wiped the frame and glass with gentle, steady strokes. The boy felt as if he were polishing a mirror, and in that mirror his own gaze grew clearer. The teacher said, "Each evening you can polish your word with a small act. Straighten the corner of your desk. Fold a shirt. Wash a cup. Write 3 lines of gratitude. Polishing the word is polishing the heart, so that tomorrow you see it more clearly. A word fades if left hanging without care, just as a vow fades if spoken but not lived." Night fell, filling the room with the scent of old wood. The novice spread a mat and placed the sheet with the 3 characters for peace beneath his pillow. As if placing a small stone in his hand before sleep, he lay on his side, palm on his chest, breathing with the rhythm of the character in his mind. P as he inhaled, ace as he exhaled, each cycle like a gentle wave touching shore. Thoughts were still present, but they passed through like visitors reading a signboard at the door before walking on. For the right word was already hanging. Sleep arrived quietly, like a friend sitting softly by the bed. If you are listening now, perhaps tonight you too may try hanging one word for yourself. You do not need ink or brush, only a small scrap of paper and any pen. Ask your heart what it lacks tonight: calm, enough, light, or breath. Write it in one breath. Hang it where your eyes can easily touch it, above your bed or beside your desk. Before sleeping, place your hand on it and read it with slow breaths. In the morning, polish it with a gentle act. Pour a glass of water. Open a window. Tidy a corner of the table. One true word is like a bamboo pole in the current, keeping your boat from drifting. When you are used to standing under one word, you realize the wall inside your mind needs very few words to shine. And from that light, we can step softly into the next story, where a night road with scattered lamps will teach the art of walking in darkness with small markers, so that each step knows where it is without seeing the end. Night draped the village road like velvet, only a few lamps glowing faintly along the path. The air was cool after the long day. The scent of wild grass rose from the fence, and the chirping of crickets wove a soft fabric of sound. The teacher told the novice to carry a small lantern, its warm yellow glow just enough to light a circle of earth at his feet. They stood at the head of the road, where the darkness stretched seamless like a slow river, eyes lifted toward the distant lamps shining like low-hanging stars. The boy swallowed lightly, his chest tightening at the thought of paths unseen, shadowed turns, sudden bends. The teacher placed his hand on the boy's shoulder, his voice warm like newly lit incense. The night does not ask you to see the whole road. The night only asks you to see the next step. A long road is woven from short spans of light, just as a long day is woven from simple moments of knowing where you are. They walked on, the lantern in the boy's hand opening a small circle on the ground, enough to see the crack in a brick, a fallen leaf not yet dry, the edge of grass rising like the border of a drawing. Far ahead, a lamp flickered in the breeze above someone's porch, becoming the first marker. The teacher whispered, "In the dark, a marker is a promise." You do not need many promises. You need only one ahead and one in your hand. That lamp is the promise of what is before you. This lantern is the promise of now. When you keep those two promises, fear has no reason to drive you away from your own step. At the first bend, the path narrowed between two bamboo fences. A breeze came from a side alley, carrying the smell of wood smoke and freshly cooked rice. The novice slowed slightly, for the darkness at the corner seemed heavier. The teacher suggested, "Call out 3 things that are truly here. Cool tiles under your feet, warm lantern in your hand, rising steam of rice. These 3 are enough to stake into the ground." Overthinking is when the mind runs toward countless possibilities. Peace is when the mind stops at the few things that are present. The boy repeated the 3 things softly, and as if oil had been added to the lamp's flame, the light in his hand seemed fuller. His steps passed through the bend without stumbling on imagined shapes. The road opened into a gentle slope. At its crest glowed a small lamp, its circle of light still, but closer. They saw fireflies drifting as if they were living letters. The teacher asked him to pause, extinguish the lantern, and stay quiet. Darkness thickened at once, but as the boy's eyes adjusted, he began to see the fireflies shine as scattered punctuation marks guiding the way. The teacher said, "Sometimes you must quiet your own voice in order to notice the small lights out there. Gentle ideas, subtle signs, quiet friends, soft reminders, all are present, but the noise in your head hides them. When you dim it, the fireflies appear, and a cluster of fireflies is enough to light a stretch of road." They walked on under that scattered yet familiar glow, reaching a clearing where the trees blocked the distant lamp. The night seemed to swallow every outline. The novice felt his heartbeat quicken, his hand tightening around the lantern's handle. The teacher's voice was steady. "When there is no marker ahead, use the marker of rhythm. Count 10 steps, then pause for 1 breath. Repeat 3 times." The boy obeyed, each step tapping the ground like a soft drumbeat. At the 10th step, he paused, letting a long breath fall like a pebble into a well. 3 rounds later, the night was still dark, but no longer boundless. It now had rhythm and boundary. Rhythm itself is the soft fence that keeps the night road from becoming an abyss. Beyond the clearing, another lamp appeared, this one lower, hanging near the ground. Beneath it sat a shuttered shop with an old sandal resting on its doorstep. The teacher pointed to it. "Every traveler at night needs something plain like that. A simple ritual, a quiet habit, a small covenant. It is how we tell the night we will pass through gently." You might be the one who lights your desk lamp at 8 to close the day. You might be the one who pours a glass of water before shutting down. You might be the one who opens the window for 3 breaths before replying to a letter. Your own old sandals lie in those places, not showy, but steady, keeping your steps warm and sure. Near the end of the road stood an ancient tree with wide branches, a flat stone at its base. The teacher invited the boy to sit. The night breeze flowed like cool water, the rustle of leaves barely audible. "Where does your fear stand now?" the teacher asked. The boy listened inwardly and answered, "It is no longer in front of me. It is at my right side, like a friend waving, reminding me to keep close to the edge." The teacher smiled gently. "Then you are steering yourself. Fear does not disappear, it simply changes roles. When it is a reminder, it is useful. When it takes the wheel, it leads astray." We walk at night not to destroy the darkness, but to learn to place fear in its right place. Overhead, the clouds parted to reveal a scattering of stars. The teacher pointed upward. In the old days, people traveled at night by stars, by wind, by the smell of soil, by the song of insects, by the soles of their feet. Today, you can still travel that way, even in hallways lit with electric lights. When the night of the mind descends, use the star of a word you have hung, the wind of one deep breath, the soil scent of a warm cup of tea, the insect song of gentle music, the soles of slow steps. Not all at once, just 1 or 2 are enough. The map of night is not printed on paper, It is inscribed in the body. They rose and walked the last stretch. The temple lights came into view, the familiar archway opening like arms in welcome. Stepping onto the first brick of the courtyard, the boy looked back at the road. It was still dark, but no longer foreign. The scattered lights linked in his memory into a kind chain. Each a proof that night is not a suffocating block but a space you can walk, with markers, with rhythm, with rituals, with breath. If you are listening, perhaps within you too there is a night road, where thoughts gather into heavy clouds and strange visions line both sides. You do not need a sun to tear the dark apart. You only need a small lantern. Choose a marker just ahead, the clock striking bedtime, a book laid open, a half-closed door. Choose a marker in your hand, the warmth of a cup, the feel of pen on paper, the rhythm of your soles on the floor. Then walk 10 steps and pause for one breath. Repeat a few rounds, tapping rhythm into the dark to remind it you are present. When fear surges, call out 3 things truly here, like planting 3 stakes in the ground. And if possible, quiet some noise so the fireflies of small signals appear, guiding you across. One night will link with the next, until you realize the map of walking through darkness is already in your hand, and the path home has never moved. Before closing the lesson, the teacher whispered that one more awaits at the veranda, where sandals are placed neatly each night and hands join at the chest like 2 soft closing doors. There you will see the strength of returning each thing to its right place, each task to its right time, each breath to its right rhythm, and know that peace is not far. Peace lives in the art of placing each thing where it belongs. Then teacher and novice crossed the threshold together, carrying with them the scent of night grass and the small glow still warm in their palms. Though it was late, the temple courtyard glowed gently with the oil lamps on the veranda. The brick steps were worn by countless feet, each one remembering the gait of those who passed. At the doorway, the teacher's cloth sandals lay straight, their tips pointing outward like a small greeting to the night. The novice's pair rested askew, as if a question left unfinished. The teacher said nothing, only sat on the step, smoothing his hand across the cool bricks, eyes resting on the soft dark before the house. Then he pulled the boys' sandals into line, turning their tips toward the room in invitation. "Do you see?" he said softly. "A day closes in peace when each thing returns to its place. Overthinking is when everything lies scattered, in the room and in the mind. Peace is not far. Peace lives in the art of putting things back." The boy sat beside him, hearing a dry leaf fall on the step below, light as a story nearing its end. The teacher pointed to the thin groove between 2 bricks, where rainwater often ran in a slender stream. You may think a great flow requires a wide river, but sometimes only a straight groove is enough to show water where to go. In your mind, it is the same. If each thought has its own shelf, it will lie down quietly. Without shelves, everything spills across the floor, and you can only tiptoe, afraid to touch, afraid to stumble. Train your mind to build small shelves. A shelf for tomorrow's work is 1 sheet of paper on the desk. A shelf for unspoken words is a short note. A shelf for worry is 3 breaths to name it, then set it down. With shelves, nothing needs sweeping away. It only needs to be put back. In the room, a shirt still hung over the chair from the afternoon. A book lay open in the middle of its page on the bed, and a half-finished cup of water sat by the window. The teacher stepped inside, placed the shirt on a hanger, slipped a dry leaf between the pages as a bookmark and closed the book, filled the cup to the brim, and drank it empty. Returning to the veranda, he smiled and said that each small act is a gentle answer to confusion. When the hands are busy setting things in their right places, the head is spared from building a courthouse. Some nights you do not need much reasoning. You only need to finish a ritual of gathering the day. Gathering the day is not control. It is returning everything to its home. When things return to their homes, thoughts follow their example. The novice tried his own round of gathering. He picked up a hair tie fallen to the floor and put it away, smoothed the blanket flat, adjusted the pillow a little higher, blew the dust off the desk. Each act took only half a breath, but the room itself seemed to breathe with him. He realized that what frightened him was often not great events, but the feeling that everything was slipping from his grasp. When he straightened a pair of sandals, when he folded a blanket's edge neatly, he felt he could touch life gently. That gentleness seeped back into him like water soaking into roots. The teacher opened a drawer and took out an old cloth used for dusting. He asked the boy to sit on the veranda, and together they polished their sandals. As the fabric passed over the leather, the dust of the day's roads suddenly held meaning. The teacher said, "Polishing sandals is polishing footsteps, so that tomorrow the feet can step into a clean beginning." The same with the mind. Before sleep, polish one footprint inside. It may be a sentence spoken too quickly, a thought stretched too far, a reproach too heavy. Do not excuse it. Do not punish yourself. Just polish it, with a quiet apology, with a small intention to mend. Then set it down. Night is for rest, not for trials. In the corner of the room stood a small handbell, the kind used to call meals. The teacher rang it lightly, letting out a sound both thin and deep, then placed the bell on the table like a period at the end of a sentence. The sound did not last long, but the silence that followed opened wide. The teacher said, "A period is the home of a sentence. If every sentence trails on with ellipses, the mind becomes a road that never ends." Each night, find a way to place a period. Some do it with a bell, some with the closing of a book, some with the last sip of tea, some with the click of a lamp turned off. A period does not resist tomorrow. It only allows tonight to remain tonight. A small lizard crawled along the wall, paused under the lamp, then slipped into a crack in the wood. The boy watched. The teacher smiled and said, "The lizard knows its way home because it has its own crevices." People, too, need small crevices, habits that hold them. A softly closed door, sandals aligned, a shirt on its hanger, a word hung on the wall, a cup placed back on its spot. These are our crevices into peace. Inside them, we do not need strength. We only need to be in the right place. And when we are in the right place, fear has no seat. Before bed, the teacher showed the boy a gesture called returning to the threshold. Stand on the step, look down at your sandals. Inhale knowing you stand here. Exhale knowing you are about to enter a safe place. Let your hand brush the latch as if touching a loved one. Then step across. Each night, the threshold teaches that between outside and inside there is always a thin line that must be crossed with awareness. If the day has been too windy, just remember there is still a threshold waiting for you, and the way to cross it is by slowing one breath. They turned off the lights, leaving only the quiet glow of the courtyard streaming through the door crack. The boy lay down, his palm on his belly as always. But this time he added a new act, placing his memory on the sandals resting neatly outside. He saw clearly the toes turned inward, felt again the soft cloth across their surface, heard again the small bell's note like a period at the end of the day. He smiled in the dark, like one who has found the path back to bed without stumbling. Thoughts came but stood in line, each thought finding its shelf. Tomorrow's appointment, he placed on the desk, words unsaid. He wrote on a note inside, an old fear, he said in the compost bin the garden had taught him. The inner room became a small storeroom newly arranged, and he lay there as its keeper who had just locked the door. If you are listening, tonight you too may try a simple threshold ritual. First, return one item to its place, a shirt to its hanger, a book to its shelf, a cup to the sink. Next, align your sandals, their toes turned inward like an invitation to sleep. Then place a period on the day, with a bell if you have one, or by closing a page, turning off a lamp. Finally, stand at your bedroom threshold. Inhale knowing you are here. Exhale knowing you are stepping into safety. When you lie down, imagine shelves inside your mind. Name a thought and place it on its shelf. It need not be perfect. It need only be neat enough for sleep's footsteps to pass through. Outside, The breeze had stilled. The night held the scent of warm bricks and the steady chorus of crickets like a background song. The teacher said softly that the temple bell would ring early tomorrow, and we would learn the lesson of dawn, how light does not rush in, but seeps gently from the mountain's edge, teaching that the greatest changes often arrive as the smallest additions of brightness. The story of the threshold ends here, like a door closing softly, leaving the night to do its work and the listener's heart to rest in its place. Dawn arrives not with a loud sound but with a thin line of light along the ridge, as if someone had opened a door just slightly for the day to seep in. The air is cool and clear, night dew still clinging to leaves, birds rehearsing in short, halting lines that gradually grow full. The temple bell strikes its first notes, not hurried, each spaced with silence gentle enough for the sky to change color. The teacher woke the boy while dew still hung on his lashes, poured him a cup of warm water. "Drink," he said, "so the light has a path inside." The boy lifted the cup, the warmth sliding down his throat, waking the quiet corners of his body. He stepped onto the veranda, the bricks still cool, the ground spread like fresh cloth awaiting the first steps of the day. The teacher led him to the backyard, where a patch of low grass stretched out. On it lay a long wooden plank for sitting meditation. But the teacher told him not to sit yet, only to stand and face the horizon where the light was growing. "How does the light arrive?" the teacher asked. The boy answered, "Like a thin stream of milk poured into the bowl of the sky, not spilling but spreading evenly." The teacher smiled. "Most changes in life do not come like thunder. They come like light, added in very small increments each moment. When you demand peace to appear all at once, you will be disappointed. When you agree to let peace come strand by strand, you will find it everywhere." To practice dawn is to practice letting those small increments join one another. They sat down on the wooden plank. The teacher told the novice to count 10 breaths, but not with numbers, with light. Each inhale was a strand of brightness added to the ridge of the mountain. Each exhale was a strand of mist pulled back from the grass. The boy closed his eyes and saw in his mind a thin line of light spreading gradually. Not blinding, but steady. Leftover thoughts from the night before lingered like late stars, then slowly faded out. The teacher said, "When you realize that light can increase, you no longer panic when darkness does not vanish at once. Stay for one more breath and add a strand of light. A strand of light is one breath, one sip of water, one greeting, one gesture of folding the bed. A day woven with small strands of light sends the night away in peace." After sitting still, the teacher brought him to the kitchen. By the sink was a bowl left from last night. Without a long lecture, the teacher turned on the tap, let out a thin stream of water, placed the bowl beneath, and handed the boy a soft cloth. "Wash this bowl as if washing your eyes for the new day," he said. The boy followed, moving slowly, feeling the warm water slide across the surface, hearing the porcelain tap gently against the sink like a small bell. When the bowl was clean, the light reflected inside it shone brighter than the light outside. The teacher nodded. People often want to repair their whole life in the morning, but sometimes washing one bowl is enough to remind you that you can touch the world with gentleness. That gentleness invites more, the way dawn invites birdsong. The teacher placed a pinch of tea on the table. Morning tea smells different from evening tea, lighter, finer, like the voice of someone just waking. They sat facing each other, each with a small cup. "Before you drink," the teacher said, "choose one small intention for the day. Not big, not heroic. Just one thing you can place into the middle of the day without effort." The boy thought for a moment and said, "I want to thank the gatekeeper, because last night he waited late to unlock the gate for me." The teacher smiled. "That is enough. One small intention is like a pinch of salt sprinkled on soup. It gives the whole day flavor." Overthinking is when you try to cook a feast in one morning. Peace is when you know to add just a pinch. When the sun rose over the mountain line, their shadows shortened and the courtyard glowed with a gentle gold. The teacher led the boy along the veranda. Towels hung neatly, and a new broom leaned in the corner. "Sweep once through," he said, not because the dust is heavy, but because the sound of a broom across tiles belongs to the morning. The boy swept slowly. The soft rasping was like rain falling indoors. Each sweep was another line of light opening in his chest. His long crowded plans shrank into a few small tasks he could do. He remembered the gatekeeper, the note he wanted to write to the cook to thank him for dinner, the plant by the window that needed a cup of water. These small things stood in line, no pushing, no shouting. He realized he did not need to conquer the whole day. He only needed to open the door for morning to enter. The teacher stopped before a closed window. "Many people," he said, "open their phones before they open their windows. The light in their hands comes earlier than the light in the sky. But it does not feed the trees. Practice opening the window first. Let the day's wind touch your face. Listen to how the sky breathes today." The boy unlatched the frame. The shutters swung open. A cool breeze rushed in, carrying the damp smell of wood and the sweetness of new sun. In that instant, he understood why natural things can be trusted. He inhaled deeper, as if his chest had remembered a forgotten movement. They passed the dormitory. Some blankets were rumpled. Some pillows slipped aside. The teacher scolded no one. He only straightened one blanket, set one pillow at the bed's center, and invited the boy to finish the rest. When the beds were smooth, the room brightened though no lamp was lit. "Making the bed," the teacher said, "is your first greeting to yourself. It is the first strand of light you weave into the day." A person who seeks peace but skips such small rituals will keep looking for a blazing sun while forgetting that dawn always begins with a thin line. Fear favors big shadows. Peace favors small strands. Choose which one you want to feed. On their way out, the teacher stopped at the wooden board where they usually wrote daily notes. He picked up a piece of chalk and wrote a short heading, 3 things for today. He left the space below blank. He handed the chalk to the boy. "Fill it in only after the 2 first tasks, sitting still and making your bed, are done." The boy wrote slowly, each word like a breath. "Thank the gatekeeper. Water the plant. Wipe the dining table." The teacher nodded. "That is enough. When you limit what must be done, you expand what can be felt. And in that space, joy finds room to stay." Before the sun climbed high, the teacher led him around the garden and back to the well. They drew up a bucket of water and shared it to wash their faces. Morning water is colder than evening water. It woke the features of their faces as if naming each part of the day. "What do you hear now?" the teacher asked. The boy answered, "I hear the birds more confident, the cook's broom brushing, the sound of someone's shoes placed softly on the veranda." The teacher said, "These are the signs that light is now enough for the world to begin its work." And so it is with you. When your light is enough, you will begin naturally without forcing. If it is not enough yet, do not scold yourself. Add one more strand. Drink another sip of water. Open the window a little wider. Stand still for a little longer. Then begin when your body says it is ready. The boy pressed his palms together, gazing at the mountain range now clear, a thin veil of mist still guarding the night's last secrets. He remembered mornings when he had opened his eyes and chased his thoughts like a train already leaving. Today, he felt himself board the first carriage slowly, sit by the window, watch the scenery flow without his heart being carried away. He understood that dawn is not outside, it is wherever you add one more strand of light. One strand in washing a bowl, one strand in opening a window, one strand in making the bed, one strand in writing 3 small tasks. These strands weave into a garment both light and strong, enough to walk through the winds of the day. If you are listening, tomorrow morning you may try the lesson of dawn in your own way. When you wake, do not demand brightness at once. Choose one strand of light. Sit up and drink a cup of warm water. Pull back the curtain or open the window to let the wind touch your face. Smooth your bed sheets. Rinse a cup until it shines. Stand still for 3 breaths at the door or by the window. watching the sky change color. Then write down 3 things just enough for the day, small but true. If your mind runs ahead to the day's end, bring it back to the ridge of the present, and add one more strand. After a few mornings like this, the night's weight will fade, and the fear of a long day will no longer block the door. Light does not crash in, light seeps in, but in the end, every room fills with drops of brightness such as these. The sun had risen enough to cast the shadows of the bamboo across the courtyard tiles. The teacher looked at the novice, smiling gently, as one does when seeing a sprout stretch itself. Today, he said, you will carry your strand of light through the day as if carrying a thread in your pocket. When you meet confusion, thread the needle with a single breath and make one small stitch. When you meet someone in sadness, give them a strand of light through a greeting or a cup of tea. When you meet your own weariness, lay a strand across your forehead with a minute of closed eyes. By evening, you will find that your garment of the day has grown thicker, but not heavier, and from that garment, we can walk calmly into the next story, where sunset will teach the art of folding the day neatly, like folding a sheet of paper, leaving only soft creases and enough open space for night to pass through gently. Like a kind wind, evening arrived as if honey were poured through the gaps in the leaves. The trees stretched long shadows across the tiles, and the birds changed their songs, as if they too were folding away their daytime tunes. The teacher called the boy into the courtyard. On the table lay a sheet of handmade paper and a small clay teapot. Still warm, we will learn how to fold the day, he said, as you fold a piece of paper neatly, so that inside only soft creases remain and space enough for the night to enter. The boy sat down before the paper, listening to the breeze through the veranda, carrying the scent of old wood and fading sun. The teacher poured tea, pale green like a small still pond. Before folding the paper, fold your breath, he said. Inhale to gather the last rays wandering across your skin. Exhale to release the threads of fatigue resting on your shoulders. Each breath is a first crease, simple but decisive for the shape of the whole sheet. The teacher pressed a fingertip along the edge of the paper, leaving a soft line, then opened it again to show the crease. He said, in a day there are always 3 important folds: the fold of gratitude, the fold of learning, and the fold of letting go. No need to declare them. Only touch each fold with one short sentence in your heart. The boy laid his hand on the paper and recalled the morning's bowl washed to brightness, the sound of the broom across the tiles, the gatekeeper's eyes when receiving thanks. A warmth spread in his chest. He whispered thank you, as if placing a grain of salt on his lips. The fold of gratitude sank gently into the paper. For the second fold, he remembered the lesson of dawn, that light comes in drops, and realized that dusk also departs in drops. The fold of learning marked itself as a guiding line. For the third, he let his hand rest longer, naming one thing to release, a half-spoken word, an unfinished plan. He exhaled slowly, as though setting down a bundle on the tiles, smiling because his hands felt lighter. The sun gathered itself at the horizon, sketching a red-orange line like a marker thread. The teacher rose and invited the boy to the low wall where the bougainvillea vines were closing their petals. Folding the day, he said, is not rushing to shut, but letting doors close in their own rhythm. Like flowers folding, like birds returning to nests, like wind thinning out. Walk once slowly around the courtyard. With each step, place a thank you. Thank you to the tile beneath your foot. Thank you to the veranda for shade. Thank you to the meal cooked on time. Thank you to the smile you caught at the gate. Each thank you is another crease, smoothing the sheet of the day. The boy walked. His steps like thread sewing closed the unfinished seams. When he returned, the familiar courtyard looked brighter, not because of more sunlight, but because his eyes had softened. The teacher placed a small dish on the table, holding 2 slender candles. When lit, their glow danced gently, casting golden shadows across the paper. Some people close the day with breath and candles, he said, some with the scent of tea, some by rinsing their hands in cool water. The way is not important, only that you close. When you do not, the day stays open, the night cannot find its entrance, and your mind becomes a train station without schedule. Close gently, like drawing a thin curtain. The boy lifted the teapot, poured again, touched the cup to his lips. Evening tea tasted deeper than morning tea, like a story nearly finished. Seeking its last line, he drank slowly, hearing his heartbeat shift into a quieter rhythm. At the edge of the courtyard, a brown robe still damp hung on the line. The teacher lifted it, smoothed its folds, and brought it under the veranda so the night dew would not soak in. Folding the day, he said, also means placing unfinished things into a resting place. Not finished, only set down in the right harbor. Unfinished work into a drawer. Unanswered questions onto a page. Unsettled feelings breathed with 3 breaths. Then named. Leave them there. Meet them tomorrow. Like this robe. Let it stay under shelter tonight. And hang again tomorrow. If you force it dry with fire, it will burn. Overthinking is trying to dry with fire. Peace is knowing when to carry it into shade. A flock of sparrows landed on the roof tiles, hopping a few steps, then fell still. The silence became clear enough to hear a single leaf touch the ground far away. The teacher handed the boy a small glass jar filled with folded slips of paper. Each slip, he said, is like a quiet doorway for dusk. The boy opened one, reading softly. What today could be lightened a little more? He looked around, then inside, and chose to write a note of apology to the young cook in the kitchen. Because at noon he had spilled some flour by accident, he wrote a few short lines and slipped them into a thin envelope. Inside him, a tight knot loosened. The teacher nodded, as though hearing the tuning of a string. The sun touched the mountain's edge, its last glow pouring down like thick honey. The teacher asked the boy to sit again before the paper, and this time fold it fully along the creases. The sheet gave way easily, each fold making a soft, round sound, like the pendulum clock of an old house. When the paper became a neat envelope, the teacher asked him to place a blessing on it, for himself and for someone else. The boy closed his eyes. His blessing moved lightly, like wind through a doorway. Not elaborate, only wishing a gentle sleep for the cook. And for himself, he placed the envelope in the desk drawer as if placing a small stone on a riverbank, marking that the boat of the day was tied. From afar, the evening bell rang short and low. The teacher extinguished the candles, leaving only the violet sky and the scent of tea lingering on the cups. Dusk teaches the art of withdrawing, he said, withdrawing from stories that run too long, withdrawing from light too strong, from speed no longer fitting, from the judge's seat into the keeper of rhythm. Each withdrawal is another crease in the paper of the day. When you withdraw well, the night will find room for its shadows, and in those shadows you will find your bed. The boy rose and followed the teacher on a slow walk along the veranda. Night-blooming jasmine had opened, fragrant and tender, like a lullaby without rhyme. At the doorway, he looked out at the courtyard, now only pale chalk lines under the moon. Suddenly he felt an inner movement of closure, as if someone gently drew the curtain. Tomorrow's tasks still waited, but no longer struggled. Questions still unanswered remained, but their demands grew softer. He realized the lesson of evening was not to become different from others, but to return to the rhythm of being human, the rhythm of a day that knows how to open and how to close. If you are listening, tonight you may try folding your day as you fold a sheet of paper. Sit quietly somewhere, place a sheet before you, or simply rest your hands on your lap. Press 3 creases with 3 short sentences in your heart. What are you grateful for? What have you learned? What will you release? Breathe with each crease until the words soften. Then choose one gesture of closure. Switch off a lamp, rinse a cup, write a note of apology or thanks. Pour a small cup of tea. Do not hurry to clean the whole day. Just return the stray things to a resting place. When you are done, stand at your bedroom door. Look at the night as at a visiting friend. Nod in greeting. Then close the door softly. Sleep will know the way in. The way water knows how to follow its channel. Above, the sky turned into a deep velvet expanse. A few stars round as pins holding the fabric of night to the invisible dome. The teacher said softly that tomorrow there would be a short walk down the slope in front of the temple, where pebbles scatter and a single dry leaf can change the direction of a small stream. There, you will see that some changes require only the smallest touch in the right place. And many fears dissolve simply because of one pebble resting in the palm. The novice bowed, carrying with him a folded sheet of the day, so the night could pass through with steps as gentle as a visiting friend who knows when to leave. The next morning was clear as a bowl of water placed in the courtyard. The early breeze so light that the sound of leaves touching was like a whisper. The slope before the temple gate was covered with small stones, round and smooth, shining from the night's dew. The first rays of sun made them sparkle like sugar candies. The teacher invited the boy to walk slowly down the slope, each step letting the soles of his feet test the firmness of the earth. Midway, a narrow channel cut by days of rain carried a thin flow, bearing scraps of debris and yellow leaves. The teacher bent, picked up a dry leaf, and set it on the edge of the stream. The current shifted, hugging right, then rejoining its old path. "Do you see?" he said. "Some changes require only the smallest touch in the right place. Just the same in the mind. A pebble placed in the palm at the right moment can slow a thought rushing too fast." The boy sat by the slope, dipping his hand into the water, listening to its trickle. He remembered nights when streams of thought carried him like a leaf pulled into a whirlpool. The harder he fought, the more tired he became. The teacher placed a small stone in his hand, cool and round, its surface speckled like sky blended with earth. "When your mind races," he said, "place the pebble in your palm and rest that hand on your belly. The stone makes your hand a little heavier. Your breath drops half an inch deeper, and the current inside you shifts. You do not need to stop the stream, only change its angle." The boy tried, and the stone's coolness touched his skin like a clear signal. His breathing lengthened naturally, and his thoughts were still present, but they stepped half a pace back to make room for his body. They continued down the slope, past a bend where more stones had gathered. Some sat uneven, causing the water to scatter into messy branches, spraying onto the boy's cloth shoes. The teacher picked up 2 stones, placed them together as a thin barrier, and the water gathered into one smoother path. "Overthinking," he said, "is like these needless branches of the mind's stream, soaking our feet. You only need to set down 2 good stones, a small habit and a small boundary, and the water will flow true. A small habit might be 5 minutes without a screen before bed. A small boundary might be saying no to a late night meeting. Do not seek a wall. Seek 2 stones set close. Once the path is clear, water knows where to go." A gust of wind dropped leaves into the stream. The current faltered, then lifted them and carried on. "Obstacles," said the teacher, "are like dry leaves, arriving, then leaving. What holds the stream back is not the leaf, but the angle of the channel. If the angle is open, the leaf will pass. If the angle is blocked, the leaf will stick. Inside you, the blocked angles are words like always or never, harsh judgments, and habits of self-blame. When you notice an absolute appearing, try replacing it with a word that gives room. Perhaps, sometimes, today, just one word can be the leaf lifted from the edge." The boy tried speaking softly to himself. "Today I feel a little tired. Sometimes I walk more slowly. Perhaps tonight I will sleep earlier." Such words made the slope inside him less steep. At the bottom lay a flat patch of earth where villagers often rested. An old man with a bundle of firewood stopped, set it down, breathed long, and smiled in greeting. He pointed to the channel, saying that last year's rains cut it deep, washing soil away. So the villagers each brought a few stones, built small barriers, and the current grew gentler. The teacher turned to the boy. "On days of confusion, you too can borrow pebbles from others. a question to a friend, an embrace, a short call, a letter once written by someone you love. Borrowing the strength of others is not weakness. It is how rivers learn to flow in valleys. Not alone across sand, the teacher picked up another pebble, placed it in the boy's hand, and asked him to close his eyes. Let the stone speak. In silence, the boy felt a small but clear sentence rise within. Now, only breathe and take one step. He opened his eyes. The slope was the same. The water still moved, but the noise inside was softer, as if someone had lowered the volume of background music. He understood the pebble was not a charm. It was a meeting point where body and mind touch. When the body holds something real, the mind does not need to imagine too much to know it is here. They followed the stream to where it spilled into a small hollow, no larger than 2 hands. The water pooled clear, its sandy bottom glittering. The teacher dropped a grain of sand slightly larger than the rest. Instantly the flow split, half left, half right. One small grain had made 2 paths. In life, a tiny shift at the start of a day can bend the whole course. A warm cup of water, an open window, a bed smooth, a choice not to argue after 9 at night. With one grain in the right place, the whole current finds an easier way. The boy nodded, remembering the threads of light from dawn, now linking with the pebbles of this morning. Like beads strung together, a village boy ran down with a small plant in his arms. Stopping by the pool to scoop water with a plastic ladle, he watered the young tree. The teacher asked why not fetch water from the well. The child laughed, because here the water flows gently, just enough, without splashing dirt. The teacher glanced at the novice, winking. Sometimes you need the big well, but sometimes all you need is a small pool, steady and near. When your mind is weary, do not rush to grand philosophy. Find a pool, and water your heart with a few adleffels. Listen to a kind song. Sit by a window. Write a line. Hold a pebble. That is enough to keep the tree within from wilting. The sun climbed higher, warming the slope. They returned to the temple steps, stopping where the tree's shadow touched the ground. The teacher asked the boy to place 2 stones on the step, one named Small Habit, one named Small Boundary. Stand between them whenever your thoughts scatter into too many paths. Ask yourself, what small habit can I practice right now? What small boundary can I set today? Nothing more. 2 questions or 2 stones to hold back the overflow. And if you feel drained, go find a pool. Not much, only enough to wet the soil at your roots. The novice sat down, arranging the 2 pebbles side by side like anchors. Inside his chest, he felt a subtle shift, a current settling into calmer flow. He thought of tonight. If the rush of thoughts came, he would place the pebble in his palm, rest that hand on his belly, breathe 3 long breaths, and ask 2 small questions. Suddenly, the night no longer seemed endless. It had turns, banks, and places to pause. If you are listening, perhaps there is a pebble near you too. And if not, you may borrow another small object that fits your palm with some weight, a key, a bottle cap, a coin. When your mind begins to race, place it in your hand and rest your hand on your belly. Let its small weight draw your breath downward. Let its coolness or warmth call you back to your body. Then ask just 2 questions. What small habit can I practice right now? What small boundary can I set today? It could be drinking a glass of water, folding the shirt left on a chair, turning off one screen, saying quietly not now, and if needed, go find a pool, open a window, listen to a gentle song, write 1 line, water yourself with 2 handfuls of calm. These little pebbles and pools will turn the direction of larger streams in your day. The wind shifted, announcing noon's approach. The teacher picked up the 2 stones, placed one in the boy's hand, kept the other in his own. He said tomorrow they would walk through a field and across a swaying bamboo bridge where the wind plays, to learn how to step with their own rhythm when everything around them is trembling. But before that, today live with these 2 stones, and see how much lighter one can become from just a single small touch in the right place. The novice nodded, the pebble resting in his palm like a promise, small but firm, and the slope before the temple suddenly felt like a page already lined, ready for tomorrow's words to be written more gently. The noon slipped into early afternoon with a thin stream of sunlight. The wind rising from the fields carrying the scent of fresh straw and the rustle of rice like an old song. The teacher led the boy down a narrow path between two golden paddies, just wide enough for 2 feet to walk in a line, stalks bowing with the rhythm of the breeze. Ahead, a narrow canal cut across the field. Over it lay a bamboo bridge, its body built of old poles tied with rattan, its railing the same, polished smooth by sweat and sun until they gleamed. The boy stopped at the head of the bridge, staring at the water below, murky with silt, unease stirring as he imagined the wavering steps. The teacher did not rush him. He placed his hand on the bamboo post at the bridge's edge, the gesture of one conversing with wood and wind, then turned and said softly, "The bridge will sway with the wind and with your steps." But the bridge was built to be crossed, not stared at from afar. What you must learn today is not to make the bridge still, but to walk with your own rhythm amid what is already shaking. The boy inhaled slowly, exhaled slowly, and set his foot on the first bamboo beam. The bridge quivered, like the pluck of a string. The feeling rose from the soles of his feet through his ankles to his knees. Instinct told him to stiffen, to brace, but he remembered his teacher's words. The rigid will stumble, the supple will pass. He loosened his shoulders, let his tongue fall from the roof of his mouth, allowed his head to nod in a faint rhythm. The second step, again the sway, but this time he exhaled as the bridge tilted left, inhaled as it returned right, like rocking a hammock with breath. After 5 steps, he realized the swaying was no longer an enemy. It had become a partner in a slow dance, as long as he did not fight for the lead. Midway, the wind rose stronger, waves rolled across the rice. The bridge bounced with each gust. The boy wanted to stop, but behind him the teacher spoke gently. To stop amid swaying will only make the sway greater. Shorten your steps, lower your center, and keep your breathing as a count. The boy obeyed, each step halved to the length of his foot, each breath split evenly, half for listening to the wind, half for listening to his body. Strangely, as his steps grew smaller, the bridge seemed calmer too. The rasping sound of bamboo poles against one another softened into a rhythm as gentle as cloth brushing cloth. Looking down, he saw sunlight scatter across the water into bright fragments, each shimmer trembling like a smile of reassurance. Near the end, the railing dropped lower, the canal below deepened, and shadows from clouds made the water darker. An old fear rose, tugging at him with stories of slipping, of not holding on in time, of what if and what if again. The teacher touched lightly at his elbow, just enough to remind without startling. "Look where your foot lands, not into the shadow of fear," he said. The boy lifted his gaze from the dark water to the bamboo beam before his toes, where the rattan ties still showed their knots. The place to step was real, the fear had only shadow. In that shift, he understood something new. Overthinking makes us stare into the black water beneath the bridge, while peace requires only placing our eyes on the bamboo before us. They reached the far bank, where the fields opened wide and the wind blew free as if the sky itself was answering. The teacher asked him to sit by the dry ridge, both of them facing the bridge they had just crossed. From here it seemed no longer frightening, only a thin thread binding 2 pieces of land, swaying lightly like a breath. The teacher said life has stages like bamboo bridges. When everything shakes, news arriving too fast, the body tired, the heart not yet rested, we need not wait for the wind to stop before crossing. We must learn small things. Shorten our steps when gusts are strong. Lower our weight when the ground is unsteady. Exhale when the bridge leans. Place our eyes on a near point. Most of all, do not stiffen in an effort to defeat the sway. The stiff become posts pulled loose from the bank. The supple, moving in rhythm, become travelers who pass through. A farmer arrived with a bicycle loaded with straw. At the head of the bridge he paused, squinting at the wind, then tightened his rope and pushed forward. The wheels touched the bamboo, and the bridge began to sway again. The man leaned with his own rhythm, left shoulder lowering when the bridge tilted right shoulder lowering when it tilted back. He did not rush, nor linger, just enough that the bicycle and bridge moved as one. The teacher pointed. Anyone who lives long with the wind learns rhythm. People often want to command the wind, but the wind does not obey. It only converses with those willing to bow at the right time, and to rise again at the right time. Peace is not power over the wind. Peace is the art of dialogue with it. The boy ran his hand through the ripe rice, grains swollen under their husks. He exhaled softly, like setting down a heavy load on a doorstep. Within him spread a stillness, not stillness of silence, but stillness of consent. He remembered old times when he demanded the bridge stand still before he stepped, demanded others cease changing before he opened, demanded the world fall silent before he would sleep. Now he smiled, understanding that some bridges can only be made of bamboo, and bamboo is born to sway. So we learn to sway, to breathe, to look near, to step small. They returned to the head of the bridge. The teacher invited the novice to cross once more, but this time told him to whisper a short phrase with each step. The boy chose the words "here now," one syllable for each footfall. Here with the left, now with the right. The bridge swayed, the wind moved, clouds shifted, but he kept walking and the words stayed small. Midway, he felt as though a cord inside his mind was being tuned, not so tight it might snap, not so loose it might tangle. At the far bank he turned, his eyes bright like a field newly smoothed by sunlight. The teacher nodded. Now you have your own rhythm, he said. From here on, whenever you cross other bridges of the day, the bridge of a meeting, the bridge of unsettling news, the bridge of a hard conversation, you may carry this rhythm with you. If you are listening, perhaps there is a bamboo bridge swaying somewhere in your day. It might be the pause between two tasks, the moment before sleep, or the instant after reading a piece of news that shakes you. You do not need to turn the bridge into concrete. Shorten your steps by breaking things into smaller parts. Half a page of writing, 3 emails, 5 minutes of tidying. Lower your center with a repeated ritual. Drink a glass of water. Wash your face. Rest your hand on your belly. Place your gaze on the bamboo before your foot by choosing something near, something real, instead of staring into the dark waters of assumptions. Whisper a short phrase as your rhythm. Here now. Breathe in. Breathe out. Slow down one beat. When the bridge leans, exhale. When it returns, inhale. After a few rounds, you will feel your body naturally rediscover its dialogue with the wind. The sun tilted westward, rice casting long shadows like soft arrows. The teacher stopped beneath an old cotton tree at the field's edge. From his sleeve he drew the 2 pebbles from that morning, still warm from their palms. He gave one to the boy and kept one for himself. We place these at the 2 ends of the bridge, he said, like punctuation marks, to remind us that each crossing is a sentence brought to its close. They set the pebbles on the bamboo posts, touched the smooth cool surface as though greeting a story that had found its period. The wind still blew, the bridge still swayed gently, but within the travelers a calmer rhythm had taken root. As the evening shadows stretched back toward the monastery, the 2 walked home. The field seemed to applaud with the rustling of rice. The air scented with straw like a blessing. The boy walked close to his teacher, the dirt path soft beneath their feet. He knew that tonight the bamboo bridge would still sway as villagers crossed, and that within him too there would be bridges swaying when a message arrived, when a memory stirred. But he also knew now that he carried a rhythm, a timely breath, a near gaze, a short phrase, enough to cross. And if within you there is a swaying bridge right now, try standing tall yet soft. Let your shoulders drop, your tongue rest, your jaw release. Choose a short phrase of your own. Write it on your lips with your breath. Shrink the steps of what you are doing. Lower your weight with a small repeating habit. Place your eyes on what is close. Exhale when fear rises. Inhale when calm returns. Then walk, step by step, until the far bank appears like a friend waiting. From this bridge, we will move gently into the next story, where a thatched hut at the forest's edge will teach us the art of listening to rain without being soaked. Letting each drop become a lullaby, and letting the night, however long, remain a companion who knows how to sing softly. Late afternoon folded around the forest edge with a layer of heavy cloud. Moist air pressed into the leaves, and the scent of earth grew dark like ink. The thatched hut lay low beneath the trees, its roof streaked with moss, its bamboo walls tinted by years of smoke. The teacher and the boy stepped onto the porch just as the first drop struck the roof. Like a musician testing a string. Then the rain came, not in a rush but steadily, each layer of falling drops repeating a familiar motif. The teacher opened the door, invited the boy inside, and lit a small oil lamp, filling the room with warm gold. In the corner sat a clay pot. On the roof above, an old leak had left a faded stain down the wall like an accidental brushstroke. Listening for a moment, the teacher shifted the pot beneath the drip. The drops began to fall in rhythm. "Do you see?" he said. "No matter how wide the rain is outside, within the house it falls only in one place. Fears and thoughts may fill the sky, but under the roof of mindful attention, they come down as drops you can hear." The boy sat on the bamboo floor, back against the wall, palm resting on his belly as he did each night. Rain spread across the roof in layers, one thin and far like silk, one nearer and heavier at the eaves, one close and sharp as drops struck the clay pot. He counted them. 1 on the roof, 2 at the eaves, 3 in the pot, then back to 1, as though walking a garden with 3 small fountains. After a few rounds, strange thoughts knocked at the door, about tomorrow, about words someone had said. He listened as though hearing another layer of rain, nodding without inviting them into the kitchen. The teacher poured 2 cups of tea, the steam mingling with the scent of dry straw under the bench. The rain no longer overwhelmed. It became background music. Listening to rain, the teacher said, is not to know when it will stop, but to learn how one sound can be complete without explanation. When you allow rain to be rain, your mind no longer turns it into a conference. A gust swept across the roof, shaking loose a faster rhythm, like a thought trying to intrude. The teacher picked up a hollow gourd and placed it beside the clay pot, so the stray drops fell there instead. Its tone was brighter, higher, answering the deeper pot. "Can you tell the difference?" he asked. The boy smiled. He could. When the mind is tangled, all sounds blur into one. When the mind is calm, you can hear layers, and so you know where to place the containers. Drops of worry fall into the pot of breath. Drops of fatigue fall into the gourd of rest. Drops of memory fall into the cup of tea. You do not need one large basin, for large basins overflow. A house with many small vessels makes the night gentle. A thin flash tore the sky, followed by thunder distant and low, like someone pushing open a wooden door at the valley's end. The boy startled for a beat, then recalled the teacher's words. Thunder is the voice of rain afar, not a judgment aimed at you. He closed his eyes, returned to the steady drip of the clay pot. Time seemed to fold into intervals the size of drops. He realized something simple. In life there are times when all you need is to move your ear, from thunder to drop, from the vast sky to the small roof, from far worry to the breath right here. Not to deny the sky, but to keep one room warm. The teacher nodded, seeing that the boy had found his place to listen. The teacher laid out a thin mat and a blanket. Every house, he said, needs one corner for listening to rain and another for sleeping. If the corners mix, nights turn white. Enough listening, then sleep. Enough sleeping, then listen again. Overthinking is replaying rain already past. Peace is knowing when to close the window. Make a small ritual, he told the boy. When you decide to sleep, place your hand on the clay pot as though greeting a friend. Then leave the listening corner for the sleeping corner, not carrying the drops under the blanket. The boy tried. He touched the warm rim of the pot and felt his palm warm too. As if signing a gentle pact with the night. The rain grew heavier for a spell, then softened again, its tones shifting like a song that harmonizes itself. The teacher opened the door a crack, letting in a strand of cool air mixed with the scent of wet leaves and the distant call of frogs. "Open just enough," he said. "Too wide, and it chills. Too tight, and it stifles. The same with the heart. Open just enough for the world to enter. Close just enough for sleep to have a home." The boy understood. The kind boundary needs no harsh line, only a few thoughtful gestures. Turn off most lights, leave one small, draw most of the curtain, leave a slit, place the phone at arm's length. These small measures become the porch roof of a good night. A rain-soaked cat leapt onto the porch, shook itself once, then curled up and licked its paws. The boy opened a corner of his blanket near the door, and the cat crept closer, settling like a small ember, eyes half closed, listening to the rain. The teacher watched and said, "The cat remembers what many people forget, that you only need to find a dry enough place and let the rain sing its part." When we dash through storms trying to catch every drop on our sleeves, we stay wet longer. But when we step under a roof and simply listen, the rain arrives and leaves on its own. The mind is the same. Do not run through alleys of imagined futures to collect every worst case. Stand on the porch, listen, and smile. The teacher tied a cord across the rafters, making a line for thoughts to hang like laundry. He handed the boy some small slips of paper and said, "If during the rain a thought insists on speaking, write a single word for it and clip it to the line. Let the rain hold it. In the morning, when the sky clears, we will read them. Those still needed will be answered. Those washed away by the storm we will thank." The boy wrote one word, the name of the cook he had already sent an apology to, and another word, a reminder of his promise to the gatekeeper. He clipped the two notes to the cord, and his chest felt lighter, as though he had given a few drops back to the sky. The teacher smiled. A house needs a line to dry clothes. A mind needs a line to dry thoughts that have been caught in the rain. The water clock dripped steadily inside. The teacher poured more tea, the sound of liquid falling into cups blending with the patter on the roof. Two streams meeting at a crossroads. He told the boy that when he was young, every time it rained at night, he worried about how to dry the rice the next day. He would count each task, imagine every risk, and by morning be exhausted. Once his teacher had pointed at the clay pot and said, "Night has enough space for one pot, not for the whole drying yard." From then on, he learned to let night do night's work, to wash a bowl, fold a shirt, hear the rain, sleep. The drying yard belongs to the sun. That memory fell into the boy's heart like a warm drop, dissolving the habit of holding the whole field in one midnight hour. The rain thinned. The drip into the clay pot slowed. The roof's rhythm softened to a distant murmur, like a storyteller reaching the outline of the end. The teacher lowered the lamp wick, the light smudging into a haze like eyelids about to close. The boy unrolled his mat in the sleeping corner. But before lying down, he knelt briefly, touching his forehead to the bamboo floor as though bowing to the rain. He placed his hand on his chest, leaned on his side, and let his breath move with the few drops still falling. Thoughts still dotted his mind like the slow drops on the roof. But one by one they fell, met the gentle blanket, and closed his eyes. The cat shifted softly, sighed like the wind itself, then grew still. If you are listening, perhaps there is no rain tonight where you are. Still, you can build a small thatched roof inside yourself. Choose a steady sound as your rain, the hum of a fan, the whir of an air conditioner, the ticking of a clock, or even your own breath. Place a vessel for the drops of the night, a notebook by the bed to write one word. Then clip it to an imagined cord across the wall. Decide on a corner for listening and a corner for sleeping. Listen enough, then sleep, wake, then listen again if needed. Open just enough and close just enough. Turn off most lights. Leave one small. Draw most of the curtain. Leave a slit. Place your phone 1 arm's length away. If needed, let a small object be your clay pot. A cup left empty to catch the sound of your quiet drops. When thoughts arrive in torrents, shift your ear from thunder to drop, from the vast sky to the small roof, from far fear to the breath right here. Night will grow warm again, and sleep will find its way. Outside, the rain seemed to keep its promise, that it would go when it had given enough, and now it was closing its story. The teacher lowered the lamp further, the room fading into honey light. He whispered that tomorrow, when the sun returns, they will sit by the stream and hear how water also holds silence, and how silence is the home of peace. By then the boy had drifted into sleep, his breath blending with the broken rain like a lullaby woven by hand. The thatched roof held the scent of leaves and bamboo, while the sky held its promise of a morning clear as crystal. Morning opened like a sheet of glass, mist floated above the grass, and the first light shattered into dust of brightness in the air. The teacher led the boy along a narrow path to the thin forest, where a small stream ran over stones stacked like the hands of the earth. The water was so clear he could see the veins of sand at the bottom, green moss wrapping the rocks like scarves. The sound was not loud, but layered, sometimes whispering at shallow bends, sometimes ringing at a steep edge, sometimes nearly silent, heard only with an ear pressed close. The teacher sat on a flat stone and motioned for the boy to sit opposite. He dipped 2 fingers in the water and let 1 drop fall. Ripples spread, then vanished. "What do you hear?" he asked. The boy stayed quiet, then said, "I hear the water, and I hear the space between." The teacher nodded. "The stream is beautiful because of its silence. Peace is the same. It is not another sound added. It is the gap where all sounds can rest. When you are afraid, you try to fill every space with explanations and forecasts. And then inside you there is only rushing water. Try listening also to where there is no sound." He picked up a dry twig and wedged it into a narrow crack in the rocks. The water backed up, and its voice grew hurried. He pulled the twig away, and the stream slipped through, returning to its steady rhythm. The boy saw himself in it. Those times he tried to push thoughts away and only made them crowd louder. He exhaled, pressed his palm against the cool stone, and felt the subtle vibrations of water passing through. At a bend, a pool lay still, its surface flat as a mirror, reflecting the sky and a thin cloud. 1 pebble, 1 falling leaf, 1 moon tomorrow. Any would ripple its calm. The teacher told him, "Say a single small sentence in your mind, then stop." The boy tried. His first sentence dropped like a pebble into the pool, and he felt his mind's surface shiver. He stayed silent, and the surface slowly returned to calm. The teacher smiled. "Do you see? A sentence may be true, but if repeated again and again, all that remains is ripple. The lesson of the stream is to know when to flow and when to rest, when to pass around rock and when to hold the sky. Overthinking is a stream blocked at every turn. Peace is a stream finding its way, with room to widen into still water." The teacher stood, waded across on firm stones, drops splashing onto his brown trousers. He scooped water and poured it on a mossy rock to show that force makes you slip. Then he pointed out a path lined with dry-edged stones, guiding the boy to step across with his breath, 1 breath, 1 step, no haste. The boy obeyed, eyes fixed only on the stone ahead, not lunging toward the far bank. Reaching the other side, he found what had seemed difficult had become simple, not because the stream was shallow, but because his gaze had learned to rest on what was enough. The teacher said, "In a busy day, if you place your eyes only on the far shore, on finishing everything, you will see an endless current. But if you place them on the next stone, you will cross. The next stone is 1 short email, 1 glass of water, 1 stretch of your arms, 1 single phone call, 1 alarm switched off to go to bed. Each stone has a dry edge. What matters is finding the right one." A village boy ran to the stream, slipped off his sandals, and dipped his feet into the cool water, shouting with joy when a school of silver fish darted past. He placed a leaf on the surface and watched it drift with the current, disappear into a crack between stones, and then reappear downstream in a quiet pool. The teacher asked the novice, "Between the leaf and the water, what decides the path?" The boy answered, "The water decides, but the leaf can still tilt its angle so it does not catch on moss." The teacher nodded. Life carries us through many turns. We cannot command the stream to stop, but we can change the angle of our body and our mind, leaning a little to pass a narrow gap, standing tall to cross a deep stretch. Such changes begin with breathing into the belly instead of lifting the chest, loosening the shoulders instead of tightening, lowering the voice instead of raising it. 3 small shifts make a stream easier to walk beside. Downstream, the water slipped under a low thicket, bubbling like quiet laughter. The teacher told the novice to sit apart so they could listen to the same stream from 2 places. The boy noticed that from where he sat, the sound was higher, while from the teacher's side, it was lower, muffled by larger rocks. The teacher said, "Disagreements often come because we sit on different banks of the same current. If you learn to change your seat, you will hear another's reasoning without needing to call your own wrong." Fear shrinks when we stop demanding the river flow only as we wish. Peace grows when we see that high notes and low notes are 2 faces of the same water. A breeze rippled the surface, sunlight slid behind a cloud, and shadows of leaves stitched patterns along the bank. The teacher splashed water onto his face and said, "On restless days, wash your face with a handful of stream. Not every house has a brook outside, but you can build one in your room. A stream is 3 minutes of sitting still, a warm cup of water, 10 breaths with your hand on your belly, or 5 lines written down to ease the head. Do this, and the sound of water returns. And in every sound of water there is always a hollow pause. That pause is the doorway for fear to leave without being driven out." The novice sat longer, in the pause between 2 ripples. He suddenly heard a faraway sound, the forest itself breathing. It was not a dead silence, but a living backdrop where everything could appear and fade. He realized that in past nights he had tried to force his mind to stop thinking so he could sleep. And the more he forced, the louder it grew. In truth, he only needed to open the door for emptiness, and the thoughts would close themselves. He placed his hand on his heart and found the beat irregular yet steady, like a stream flowing past a raised stone, not round like a bell, but enough to remind him that gentle life was moving through him. They walked further along and found a place where the stream was so shallow it only spread a thin sheet over rock. The teacher pressed his palm against the damp stone and said, "The shallow is still cool because the water has not disappeared, it is only thinner." Peace is the same. Some days it is thick, some days it is thin, but it never leaves. When it is thin, do not fear. Just slow down and touch longer. Rest your palm on the stone a moment more. Sip water more slowly. Stand by the window a little longer. When it is thick, be grateful and do not waste it by pulling the future in too early. Let the stream flow by its own season. A village woman crossed the brook on a low stone bridge, carrying a basket of fresh greens with 2 children at her side. In the middle, the younger froze in fear. She pointed to a patch of darker moss and said, "Look at the brighter stone. Put your foot there. Listen to the water and take 1 long breath. Count 1, 2, then step." The child obeyed, eyes fixed on the clear stone free of moss, and crossed as easily as sliding through a tomb. The teacher looked at the novice with eyes that seemed to say, "It is time you also guide the child within yourself. When it is afraid, do not silence it. Show it where the bright patch is. Give it breath, give it counting. When it has crossed, reward it with a small smile. Do not demand that it run." The sun climbed higher, breaking into shards of silver on the water, the brook shimmering like woven cloth. The teacher sat on a rock once more, speaking softly as though to the wind. The water does not resist the shape of stone, and so it goes on. The heart does not resist the shape of life, and so it is at peace. Resistance here does not mean stopping. It means hardening. Learn to be soft like water, but remember also to keep your source as water does. Do not let yourself grow murky from carrying too much debris. To keep your source, return each day to a quiet pool. Rinse away some dust, and open a little space. If you are listening, perhaps even now you are sitting beside an imagined brook in your familiar room. You can make the sound of water with a gentle song, with the hum of a fan, or with your own breath. You can place a cup of water to be your quiet pool, reflecting a piece of your own sky. You can drop a pebble in the form of one short sentence. Then let it go. Let the ripples spread and fade. You can choose your next stepping stone for the day. Just one action that is enough. You can shift your angle with 3 small moves. Drop your shoulders. Loosen your tongue. Breathe into your belly. Then listen for the pause. Not forcing, just letting it arrive like shade under a tree. The sun poured more thickly through the canopy, telling them noon was near. The teacher said it was time to return, leaving the brook to its own path. On the trail back, the sound of water followed like a fine thread tying the morning together. The novice walked beside his teacher, heart so light he could hear the earth beneath his feet. He understood now there had never been a miracle beyond the miracle of listening in the right place. By hearing where there was no sound, he heard life's gentleness and fear retreating. He smiled faintly, like water touching stone and blooming into a small flower. Before leaving the forest's edge, the teacher paused, gazing across to where the path curved through a tea field, the green leaves shining and the slope rising like the earth's own pillow. Tomorrow, he said, we will climb the hill to pick the first tea buds and learn how boiling water speaks to leaves. So you will see that timing is the teacher of flavor. And in life, knowing when to pour and when to wait is knowing how to hold peace in your hands. The novice nodded. In his ears was still the sound of water through stones. In his chest a cool hollow. And in his steps a pace slow enough for sunlight to catch up. And so we have traveled together through a long journey of Zen tales, from the morning garden to the bamboo bridge, from the thatched roof in the rain to the forest stream. Each story leaves a small seed in the heart, like a pebble resting in the palm, a drop falling into a clay pot, a breeze brushing a leaf. These seeds may not change your life at once, but they open gentle spaces where fear can dissolve and the mind no longer has to run. You can carry with you one short phrase, one slow breath, one small ritual, and let them walk with you each day. If tonight your heart feels even a little lighter, if you can hear peace in your own breathing, then these stories have done their work. And tomorrow, you can return here to listen again for more quiet seeds of Zen. Simple yet deep. Thank you for staying until the very end. If these stories have brought you peace, please subscribe so you do not miss any journey into stillness, and leave a comment or share your reflection. Perhaps your small story will be a seed of peace for someone else in need. May you have a night of gentle sleep, a heart at ease, and a new day filled with light. Until we meet again in the next story. Nam Mo Peace.